and when he has his room on Tuesday, what time Tuesday relative to this room we're in now?
8 p.m. Eastern, so that would be that would be 9 hours
But,
after this room right now. So
okay,
Tyler, that I think would be in the morning for you.
yeah,
Feel free to just park on stage.
okay, and then
Justin, if
yeah,
you really can't get him on, there is a way to bridge it across to Zoom, so he can come on Zoom, and I'll pin a tweet that shows how to do that. I know it works.
yes, and by the way, Ben, you were not in the room when Dan was singing your praises and thanking you for helping him do exactly that, and it worked, and he was kept thanking you despite the fact you were not there to hear it.
Oh yeah, sorry I couldn't make it, but I'll pin the tweet now. I just figured out how to do it. Well, certainly on a Mac, it's relatively simple. So I'll pin the tweet, and if it's any use, it's always a backup plan. So good luck.
Cool, very cool. So,
Good
but
morning, Ben.
it's actually very important to support what Justin's doing because he has this being based in DC, both geographically and professionally, and inviting in members of Congress into Clubhouse. That could have become a snowball and have a domino effect where he's going to continue to invite in members of Congress into Clubhouse as he's going to have a guest on Tuesday. But the more people who attend that event on Tuesday, that the number of people who attended will have a big influence on the invite that he sends to the next person to join. And if he's able to say, "Hey, I had 1,000 people there," that will make a very big difference in the number of people that will accept the invitation. So,
It,
yeah,
and the goal is to get up and up and up and like
right,
have like AOC and Charles Schumer, and
exactly.
then that will give the app itself like coverage in the New York Times,
Huge
and
game
it'll
changer. Yeah.
begin to do buzz. And just to really put a fine data point on this, Tyler, you and Call sent over all of your followers for an event with Congressman Bruce Westerman. There were 30 people in the room. I DM'd you. You did the plug. We got over 200 people in that room. And as a result of that, just to show that this isn't bullshit, folks, I reached out to his communications director, a GOP member of Congress, very, very conservative. So that's great if you like that flavor of politics. And they're going to come on again to my show just because of basically the audience size that Tyler and Call cultivated. So this is not just, sales pitches, folks. This is Tyler being maybe one of the most influential people on Clubhouse in kind of directing the content that gets
No,
seen by
no,
people,
no,
maybe in
Justin.
a way that Clubhouse should be
Let
doing.
me correct you, my friend. It's the fact that tech news is not like any other normal community in Clubhouse. We hang out in the UFO room. We were all there last night. We got 250 people in there, and we hang together. And when one of us needs something, we're going to be there. And it's more. I realized today, every time we meet in here, Cal and everyone on stage, you've probably noticed this, and I just figured out something today. Every time we meet in here, it's a little bit different. Sometimes it gets a little crazy. Sometimes it gets a little rowdy. Sometimes it gets very sentimental. Sometimes it gets to hear it. Sometimes it goes there. Every time's different. Like you can't predict how this is going to end 2 hours from now, starting right now. And the reason you can't predict it is because every single person is an ingredient that's being mixed into making a cake. And every person changes the cake. Because, if you try to make the cake the same every time, okay, that's fine. But by changing one ingredient, even by a little bit, it actually changes the outcome of the cake. So it can get sweeter or saltier or, richer or creamier or, it's different every time based on who's on stage and the topic. So that's what I'm realizing is, you add a little bit of Michael, next time, you get a little bit of, it doesn't take a whole lot of Greg for the thing to get really, this way. And then you get a little bit of Justin and it goes this way and it goes, you know what I'm saying? So, and I brought up Simon this time because Simon hangs out in the audience, but Simon's company just had a new launch of their kind of new, the product got to a whole new level yesterday. You want to say a word about it? What you guys are doing is super cool.
Hey, Tyler. Thank you for inviting me on stage. Hey, everyone. I've been a
super fan of this room, just listening every day. And so thank you for the opportunity. So yes, my name is Simon Lau. I'm the VP of Product at Otter.ai. Otter.ai gives you the superpower of remembering more and typing less. So yesterday, so it's day old news. My apologies. So yesterday we launched a new major upgrade to Otter. It's called Otter Assistant for Zoom. So if you run late or you're a busy professional that have to join multiple meetings, no worries. Otter Assistant can join your Zoom meetings and transcribe it for you.
That's if I had had that in college, holy shit, that would have been amazing. You just leave your yeah.
Tyler, that's the one that's embedded in Club Deck.
Yeah, exactly. Now Club Deck, by the way, has integrated it. By the way, I don't know if that was my recommendation or not. That might have been one of the.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it was.
Maybe yes, well, I helped connect you guys anyways. But Club Deck is adding everything now. It's got the statistics, it's got transcription, and today the new features that just came out. Holy shit! If you're a mod, this is like an absolute game changer. It's totally unfair. I can now see the follower counts of everybody in the entire room in all at once. So I can see, somebody with 3,000 followers just walked in the room, or 10,000 followers. Let's put them on stage so that their 10,000 followers get notified. Totally unfair. That is unfair.
Like ClubHub.
Yes, ClubHub has the data, but ClubHub's data is actually you can integrate it directly into Club Deck as well.
So Marvin just not in this
room. But effectively, you don't use that for content, though. We don't look at followers to bring people on, right?
Yep.
But what it does is when people are raising their hands, it is one of the things that you look at their bio and the number of followers they have and how long they've been on and who invited them in. Because look here, look at this. This person, Kyle, just raised their hand with 1.3 thousand followers and made me. I'm going to look at the bio. Okay, bio looks good. Who invited them in? Looks great. They have an upcoming event called Good Technology Index. Oh, that's easy, no brainer. Go ahead. For sure, they're not going to be a spammer. And welcome, Kyle Grant, mining Bitcoin.
That's so cool. That's really cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. It's super cool. Anyway, let's dive into the news because
keep going, Tyler.
Hey, real good, thanks.
Hey, Tyler.
Hey, I hear Monica. Welcome back.
Just 1 second. I need 10 seconds. I am going to do a shameless plug because I am bringing in Simon next week on Saturday to talk about productivity hacks for product managers. So anybody who's interested in using Otter.ai and making their life a lot better should please dial into that particular room. Thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, if you're not Ben, what are you doing hanging in the audience, bro? Monica, if you don't know already, you must be new here because Monica is one of the superstars who joins us every day and is just a whiz bang in all matters of fintech and anything happening in India for that matter. So, and hosts fantastic conversations. I can't recommend enough, but that's true of pretty much everybody on the whole stage at this point. So they wouldn't be on stage if I didn't think they were worth following. So I mean, we could go through everyone, but they'll make their own case as we go through the news articles. Everyone's got their own expertise and backgrounds, and let's jump into it. Like I was saying, our friend Michelle at Facebook sent me a DM, which I was like, oh, she doesn't normally send me stuff. So I'm like, I wonder what she's sending. And it turns out to be, I will tweet it so that you can see it. In fact, I just did tweet it from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, which is at TNATW. And what it is I got to find it myself now. I need a third tab open so I can find my own tweets. Here we go. There it is. So Facebook just launched what they call Live Shopping Fridays, where introducing your new favorite way to shop live shopping Fridays. And there's an image of a lady selling makeup with her iPhone on a tripod. And as she holds up the makeup, there's little buttons where you can buy the makeup by just clicking on the buttons right from her Facebook page as she's selling them live, just as people have been doing in Asia. And just as I've been saying, we'll be coming to America any day now for about, 6 weeks. And
you predicted this 2.5 weeks ago when the China article came out.
well, even before that. I've been saying this social commerce thing that's really popular in Asia pretty much since the show started 2 months ago, because it's been, yeah, but and I haven't been repeating it every day like I was a month ago, but here it is. It's now live, and Facebook is now going to pilot this. Check out the article. It says, what if you could see this season's latest trends modeled in real time, ask questions about how they fit, select your size and buy, all from the comfort of your home. Live shopping on Facebook combines the fun of live video with the convenience of online shopping. And this summer, we're bringing some of the biggest brands together for a showcase of products, tips, and demos, and more through what they call Live Shopping Fridays. And this is precisely, as you will see if you look at the blog post that I just tweeted from TNATW, it is exactly precisely what I said is coming. And here's what's interesting about the timing of this is Google also today did a blog post about their social shopping on the same day. What are the odds of that? And Michelle even says in our DMs that F8 will be very exciting, she thinks. And by the way, F8 is Facebook's. She said so. She says she loves the timing of how Google simultaneously today also, which I'm going to tweet right now so that you can compare them side by side. Facebook's social shopping, live shopping, and Google's now live shopping blog posts both came out on the same day. What are the odds of that? I've been predicting both of these for about 2 months now, very consistently, like almost daily for 2 months. And what's interesting is Google just had their annual live event, and we did a live stream about it here. That was what's called Google I/O. It was on May 18th, so 2 days ago. Facebook's big annual event is June 2nd, so 12 days from now. And Michelle says in my DMs that this event, the flagship Facebook event called F8, will be very exciting. As she sends me this social shopping thing. So what that means is they're definitely going to be talking about this new social shopping thing at F8. In fact, I bet it will be the biggest thing that they talk about. And she's definitely looking forward to it. There is definitely more to come. So we will do a live streaming room here, just like we did with the Google live event, which was a lot of fun, by the way, I got to say. And that, by the way, that went for, we did Tech News Around the World and went immediately into the Google I/O event. Together, it went on for 6 hours. And I'm looking forward to F8 already. And then after F8, which is Facebook's big event, just 5 days after that is Apple's big annual flagship event called WWDC.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And this is their biggest event they do each year. In fact, it goes on for a week, just to give you an idea of how big this event is. And it is now, a journalist reported yesterday that they spend $50 million producing this event, just to give you an idea how big this event is. And it's where they make all kinds of super hot announcements. And it's where it is expected. In fact, we know because, we do our homework here at Tech News Around the World, that they're going to be talking and announcing and releasing the biggest announcement that they've had in over a decade. And which you can find out if you just stay tuned for the next hour or two, because no doubt we will reference it later today. So as we do every day. But I just want to welcome everybody. And if it's your first time, what we do, we're going to go over all of the tech news from all over the world, geographically and professionally. We'll cover politics, tech with Justin, and green tech with Dan, and AI with Sid and Ben and Dave and John Francois. And then we do med tech with Haitham and Dr. Danish and John and others. And then we do crypto tech and blockchain tech with Amay and Ben and Donna. And we do fintech with Monica and James. And we do China tech and India tech and Africa tech and VR tech. And it's just a lot of fun, as you will soon see. So let's jump into it. Who would like to go first? Not all at once, everybody. Akil, I can't. Akil, everyone's being too nice today.
Tyra, I can go first with
Go, Monica.
one small
I had to pop out for a meeting in 15 minutes. So
okay. Go ahead, Monica.
WhatsApp has said that majority of its Indian users have actually accepted the privacy update. This is in response to the letter that yesterday and
Yep.
what made the news, which we discussed.
Yep.
Now, interestingly enough, I've also tagged you in
Yeah.
to a story on Twitter, which actually says that the Indian government had shot off a letter to WhatsApp in January, and they are actually waiting for Mark Zuckerberg to reply back to them.
Yes.
So this
please
is
get
yeah.
We've been following this story for 3 days now. Please give the backstory for everybody who might not know the full story. So basically, WhatsApp changed their privacy policy, right? And they're telling their own users, hey, if you don't like this new privacy policy, well, you know, we can't force you to accept it, but what we can do is we're slowly going to remove all the features of WhatsApp, so you won't be able to message your friends anymore, and you won't be able to call anybody anymore. We're not going to delete the app off your phone, but we're just going to not make it not as useful for you anymore if you don't accept these new terms and conditions, right? And then India says, oh, hell no, you can't do that. And if you're going to force our Indian citizens to accept this, well, we're going to kick you out of India, essentially, which would be a huge problem for WhatsApp and Facebook, because that's 1 billion plus people who are some of the world's biggest users of that app. And that app has very big plans for India in the not so distant future, which might involve a wallet and payment. So you can imagine that WhatsApp doesn't want to risk this standoff between India and this privacy policy. So read the update again now that everyone's got the full context. That was the news as of like 12 hours ago when we met last time. What's the latest news, Monica? Again, WhatsApp is now.
Yes, so WhatsApp says that majority of the Indian users have actually accepted the new privacy update, which basically says that WhatsApp that they will be sharing their data to WhatsApp. And the Indian government had shot off that letter yesterday, which stated that they've shot off a second letter waiting for WhatsApp to actually take back the privacy policy because it is in violation of its own data privacy laws that are coming up. Plus, other countries, including in Europe, WhatsApp has adopted a much easier policy on the users without deleting their accounts. But the best part about this article is the last line, which says that the central government in India is actually waiting for Mark Zuckerberg to reply back to them to a letter that was shot off to him in January.
Okay, so let me make an announcement, dear Mr. Mark Zuckerberg. The country of India is patiently waiting for your reply. Please respond as soon as you can. Thank you very much from the country of India. So let's see.
Maybe
what
he just
says.
Missed it. You know, he's so busy.
It's probably somewhere in stuck underneath
in the inbox.
Yeah, it's just beneath Nigeria, somewhere between Nigeria and Saudi Arabia in his email stack there.
But is Zuck directly responsible for WhatsApp in India?
No, that's why it's a little comical that India's like, we want Mark to respond personally, preferably by a handwritten letter with blue ink, if that would be suitable.
That would be in the top of that would like somehow appear on the top of a to-do list, right? But no, not for Zuckerberg.
But you know what's funny? I doing the conferences that I do, I often have some very high senior people from different governments that speak at my events, and it always blows my mind how they have this very rigid protocols for how I have to invite them. Like, it has to be on this particular type of paperweight with this, it has to have gold foil embossed logo. And I mean, they just make me jump through all these ridiculous hoops to even send them an invitation to speak at the event. I'm like, no, the invitation is I just sent you a text message. Do you want to speak at the event? That's the invitation. No, it's got to be this formal thing and registered. Yeah, it's like, holy Jesus, I got to sign it with blood and, it's like crazy.
If we, Tyler, if we go back to WhatsApp for a minute, I'm based between France and Switzerland, and I've received, like probably most of us, this message on WhatsApp that says that I need to accept the new regulation or the new consent for my data to be shared. And I'm running that little experiment with my sister, who's based out of Kenya, and we've received this alert on a daily basis for about 2 months. We've not accepted it, and nothing has changed.
Right.
So is that for real?
Yeah. Well, according to India, you're not going to need to accept it, and everyone who did accept it didn't need to, because India is kind of forcing WhatsApp to back down and say your new privacy policy is not in accordance with your own policies. That's what Monica just read.
Yeah, but I'm not in India.
So I'm UK based, and I can tell you they've already started doing that.
Yeah, Germany's going through the same thing at the moment.
Yeah, they've already started reducing access to the app in the UK.
They've started to delete stuff on your app in the UK?
Not deleting, but they've stopped functionality, so you can't download external links. And some of the notifications are slow to come through or don't come through at all.
Here's an interesting question. Do we see a mass rollback because so many governments are pushing back?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, well, here's the problem. If India does what it says it's going to do, and I believe they will, because they've got the clout, because they got 1 billion people. Estonia, Facebook would be like, yeah, whatever, Estonia. Of India, you don't go tell India to screw itself, because that's like you're asking for trouble. That's just too big of a market, right? I mean, that's billions and billions and billions of dollars. So they can't tell India to go, you know what, like they could do a very small country. So when India does this, then every country knows, okay, if you push Facebook hard enough, they'll back down. And so the India will make them back down, which they're in the process of now doing, it sounds like. And then Germany will do the same, and Germany will hold tight and be like, yep, we saw what you did with India. You're going to back down with us too. And then it's just, they'll have to essentially, step back on this new privacy policy. That's my
Makes sense. Yeah.
They've already backed down once because they initially gave people, I think it was 30 days notice, and a lot of people kicked up a fuss, so they extended it. So I think if you push hard enough, Facebook will back down.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Cool, but thank you for sharing, Monica.
Can I do one from Singapore?
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay, DBS, Singapore Stock Exchange, Stanchart Temasek Holding will form a joint venture for carbon credits exchange marketplace. So this marketplace will be called Climate Impact X, CIX for short. And CIX aims to be a global exchange and marketplace for high quality carbon credits by leveraging satellite monitoring, machine learning, and blockchain technology. So with an initial focus on natural climate solutions, the carbon credits will also create impetus to address another grave risk of biodiversity loss and help serve local communities. That's the news.
Thank you.
CIX will build on collective action by global governments, corporates, and individuals to achieve a net zero economy.
Cool.
Dan is not here yet, but...
Very cool. So let me look through my stack here. What I've got is the top news of the day in the tech sphere globally is that ByteDance, which is the maker of TikTok, an app you might have heard of, the co-founder says he is stepping down as CEO to daydream about what may be possible, is his quote.
That's nice.
Yeah. He's going to go daydream for a bit. And then we talked about this in our previous session about 7 hours ago in the other time zone, which you can find our schedule because we meet twice a day. But to find our schedule, just click on the title of this room where you'll see our schedule and our Twitter account, which you should definitely follow because as we do the news, we tweet out the links of the articles we're talking about, and which is fun. And you can also send us news by simply including our Twitter account on any article that you find, and we will retweet it to our very fast growing followers. We're almost up to 1,000 followers, and we've only been doing it this way for a little over a week. So the other interesting thing is on weekends we'll start doing the Twitter Spaces, which is basically Clubhouse but on Twitter. Now that our account has 1,000 Twitter followers, we'll try Tech News Around the World in Twitter Spaces because they just today added, here's kind of news, the ability to have multiple moderators in one room, because the reason we weren't really able to do anything over there is because you could only have one moderator. But now you can have multiple moderators, and you can invite speakers from across Twitter to join the room, and they're adding new features and continue to copy Clubhouse and improve it, and there's less lag, and blah, blah, blah. So we'll try it again on Saturday. That's another good reason to follow the Twitter account, but do follow the Tech News Club and look at all the upcoming events, because in 2 hours from now, if you click on it, like I'm going to do right now, to take a pause and see what's coming up. In 2 hours from now, we are going to shift over to the AI news with Ben and Sahir and Jean-Francois and Sid and Dave, most of whom are on stage and brilliant folks in the AI space. And then we have tech news around the world tomorrow. And then after tomorrow, we have the metaverse AR VR news with Victoria and Michael, which that's a repeated regular one that people love. And then when the debut of Monica and James from MasterCard are going to do fintech and payments news around the world, which will be fantastic. And then we've got Bitcoin news with Ben, and we have blockchain with Ame, and it's a lot of fun. So do follow the club, because there's all kinds of fun we call them deep dive rooms, because in here we don't have endless hours to deep dive into some of these headlines. We can only spend 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes on some of these headlines. But when we do the deep dive rooms, that's where we can go deep as long as we need to get the whole conversation going. So that's a great reason to follow that. But on this issue of TikTok CEO resigning, we were talking about this in the other time zone today, and what we realized is not only has the TikTok CEO recently resigned, but so has Pinduoduo. And why is that interesting, you might ask? Well, if you're Chinese, TikTok and Pinduoduo are the two fastest growing apps, not only in China's history, but in the history of the planet Earth. And that might sound like I'm exaggerating, but in fact, I am not. It's actually very well known that Pinduoduo is the fastest growing app in the history of China, and TikTok is probably the second fastest growing app in the history of China. And both of those apps, just to give you context, Pinduoduo surpassed Alibaba, which is basically like the Amazon of Asia, and it's only 3.5 years old. Imagine a startup 3.5 years old being bigger than Amazon in America.
That's crazy.
That is almost impossible to imagine. But that's how big and fast that company grew. And ByteDance and TikTok are actually quite similar in its incredible growth. It's like anything anyone's ever seen. And new data came out today about just how fast TikTok has been growing internationally. It's beyond anything any social media has ever seen. It makes Facebook look like a slow old horse compared to a electric race car. So TikTok, here's the weird thing. Both the TikTok founder and the Pinduoduo founder, both resigning for no real obvious reasons. And they're both going off to ponder the universe. Why is that? And so we're wondering what's going on over there in China. That the founders of the most ambitious, fastest growing companies that the world has ever seen are resigning just to ponder the existence of it.
I think it's very natural. They have enough money already, so they don't think they have.
That's not natural.
They don't want to deal with this.
No, Cheryl, it's not natural at all.
It's natural.
No, well, name me 10 other companies that have done that.
It's their babies.
They want to daydream. No, I think probably Jack Ma set an example.
But here's what's weird: they both started doing this after Jack Ma, who's kind of the real superstar of Asia.
So he's a big brother. He set a good example. So
and as soon, he was the big brother who went to prison because his company got too big too quick, and he said
he didn't go to prison.
Well, he disappeared for 2 months.
He's not in prison. He just went to the countryside.
Right.
Keep going, Tyler. I think it has something to do with the Chinese government. I just don't know why.
Is that Dr. Francine Hardaway? Here we go again.
She's on.
Here we go, folks. And for those of you who don't know, we are very fortunate and blessed to have Dr. Francine Hardaway on stage, because each of us on stage has our own kind of X-Men superpower, mutant super strength, right? Jonathan's in the hardware semiconductor space. By the way, great to see you back, Anitha. She just has the world's highest IQ. Victoria's a whiz in VR, right? Everyone on stage has their thing. Dr. Francine Hardaway has been in this game from the beginning. So she's been there, done that,
I'm
seen
in
that.
The history space.
Yeah. but she's literally seen the evolution of this whole game from day one, and there's a repetition to these processes that so only it takes people who have been around the block a few times to recognize the patterns, actually. So, and by the way, her and I seem to agree on practically everything. So, time will see. Let's see if another Chinese super tech dragon resigns soon, because this is very suspicious behavior.
Yeah, does David Chang ever come on any
He
of
does
your
all the time. Yeah,
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah.
Okay, because he would have, I think,
I
great
agree.
insight into this.
I
I
agree.
think these 2 days he
I have a
must be busy with the Bitcoin ban in China, so I guess
And
he's exhausted.
Mongolia.
He's very, very busy with
Yeah,
what's happening with crypto
yeah.
assets.
Yeah.
okay.
Anyway,
I
but
have
she's
actually
right.
a quick
She's
comment
exactly
on
right.
that.
Anita, welcome back. What's up?
Thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, since you're talking about China, like yesterday in one of the AI ethics room,
Oh,
there were
yes.
some massively amazing deep dives on the social credit system, and it was phenomenal in the sense of to really understand how China is approaching building systems of judiciary, legal, corporate, individual, whole bunch of other systems like compliance systems. And I think what you guys are talking about may have something to do with the way they're developing the social credit system in terms of how do you hold corporations accountable in a country which is in 40 years has grown so tremendously, like compared to any other country in the history of any growth of any country. What China managed to accomplish in the last 40 years, from literally where they were to where
Yep.
they are, both
Yeah.
from an economic perspective to poverty perspective to so many other variables.
Yep.
So now they're at that maturation point where they're now developing the way they envision the systems of compliance and how do you hold an individual accountable, what is good behavior, what is good citizen, what's a good company, what's so all of that. And particularly Jack Ma case actually ties into how they're looking at systems wise and not individual. Basically means no matter what, no matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful your company is, it basically is not equal to government. Because
Correct.
government look at this collective power of how you develop systems, and it's good for the country, good for the world, and also with the ultimate goal of regaining the position that China has, which is the Chinese dream. So, how do you really fulfill the Chinese dream of being number one in the world? Actually, have digital systems where not only following the Western systems, but how do you have this entire architecture that is more technologically advanced and fit into the new technological revolution? So, in that sense, I think some of these resignations could be part of the cleansing process of not leaving the power on the table with the folks who gained power in the recent times, the last decade or two, particularly all of these companies, because the Chinese government allowed them to have that power.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been where they were if the Chinese government did not allow. But at the end of the day, you're still a cog in a wheel. You just don't control everything. So there is this aspect of controlled opening and controlled mechanism to like develop good behavior. And I think that's going to go back into that very systems development and where the current structures of the social credit system really falls into place. I think they literally could be tied to how they are viewing the role of these new billionaires who became billionaires, extremely ambitious individuals who still have to fit into a collective societal model as a system.
Yep.
And it's all about risk
Like,
management too.
Yeah. I want to.
Can I add just one thing on that? Because I was in another room early this morning,
Yes, Sarah.
7:30 European time, very quickly,
Go.
and there was this white gentleman from, I think, something called the East West Institutes that was describing also the social scoring of China. And what I took out of it is that, beside what I've just been explaining, is that the Chinese also have a very transparently acknowledge desire to apply the same system when they're entering other markets, when they're investing into Western countries or even in Africa or in other countries in Asia, and that their ambition is to score through their own metrics everyone they come across. And so therefore, if you've been in contact with the Chinese system, what this gentleman was saying is that probably you are scored because that's their worldview.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a scoring that's gonna, and they're also interested in transparency in the way they're defining, and they do want, in fact, some of the things, and this is a fascinating conversation. Like Dewey is the one who broke everything down, like it was like almost like a 6-hour session, literally discussing the nuances of the system, where it is a distributed mechanism that suits the distributed, not a centralized mechanism, even though it may appear like centralized in the, right now for the rest of the world. But the way they're developing is like, how can you govern at the local level without having to centrally govern 1.4 billion population?
Yeah.
So it's like really, really fascinating on how they're thinking through. So I think there are a couple of papers I'm going to probably share. I'm driving right now, but I'm going to share later. Tyler, if you want to tweet it out later,
Yeah, please do. I'll retweet it. Yeah.
He was alluding to. Yeah.
And send it when you find it. When you tweet it, please include at TNATW, Tech News Around the World. I see it, I retweet it. Yeah.
So
I
Yeah, I
believe
was
that
actually.
they.
I'm sorry.
It's a
I was
ladies
going to
first.
say.
Hold on one second.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
saw Dr. Francine Hardway on the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that it's kind of like the Russians treated their oligarchs. They let them grow and get a lot of money,
Oh.
and then they started putting them in jail. Because if any individual gets more power
Yep.
than the government or the collective,
Yep.
that is dangerous.
Yep.
And I think they're
absolutely, Tyler.
doing the
I
same.
think.
Jack Ma is not in jail.
No.
No. I think Cheryl.
He's just in a
Cheryl.
low profile. He's just being in low profile.
No,
No,
I
sorry,
Cheryl.
used to know
guys,
him.
can we let Dr. Francine just finish her point just
Yeah.
quickly, and then Karen,
Right.
and then yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Francine, yeah, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I'm pretty much finished. I think that this mentioned this the other night. Justin and I were in with him, where he talked about his family's businesses, where it's very easy to start a business, a very small business, and the government doesn't pay much attention to you. But when you reach a certain, the government gets very involved and the regulations come down.
So,
Well,
Dr.
Dr.
Francine, I gotta ask you to maybe do some of my recaps because that was pretty much spot on.
yeah.
So, Justin, let me touch on that, right? I think what people are missing out is this. So, let's talk about one of the companies, Pinduoduo, right? So that's
Yep.
the 50th largest company in the world. And people, if you want to get some kind of pictorial view of it, that's kind of a between if Costco and Disney were to have a baby, you would get Pinduoduo, right? That's pretty much what that is. And they have about 500 million monthly active users, 8.5 billion 2020 revenue, and 14% of China's e-commerce market. And
Not
what
bad
most
for
people
3.5 years old.
exactly, that's what I was going to say. What people forget is this is only 5.5 years old company, right? It's not, and the way this company was built on, it's about data and also this 996 law in China, which is you work till 9 to 9 and 6 days a week, right? So it's very ruthless. The way that guys managed to build that. So now, just like Jack Ma, so it's all about the system allows people to go into spaces where the China has interest, and when you get to a point, until this year, that guy held 85% ownership of the company, and there was an active CFO. He was a CFO. He was the last person to clear any of the financials. So just imagine a CEO having, it's just like literally dictatorship, right? Just making every decision, not having a CFO in a company of that size, right? So I think there's a lot of play underneath. It's completely what people are talking about. China's getting into, decentralizing this data or the social credit. I think it's just bullshit. It's basically their way of allowing you to get to a point, mobilize everything, then they just take over, just like what they've done to Jack Ma, right? They're just saying, you know what, now let us take care of the data, let us be in control of it. If not, you can just step aside, and that's pretty much what's going on.
Yep.
Dr. Francine, who is John Galt? This is probably straight out of Atlas Shrugged. This is
Totally.
I want to welcome Ken Lewis. I think you've been in the audience before, but I don't think on stage. Yeah, welcome. I have a music and background myself, and your background, I think, would be very beneficial, your insights and your expertise, because we often get into music-related issues. For example, Spotify yesterday announced they are doing virtual concerts now, which I wonder what your take is on this, because I have this wild theory that in the near, not so distant future, Spotify is known. They announced, there was a headline about a month ago that they acquired a startup called Locker Room, and Locker Room is basically Clubhouse for sports. It is Clubhouse, but for the niche of sporting events where people would get together, fans of a game, and talk. And it had just started, brand new startup, so they acquired it. No doubt they're going to use it for more than sports, maybe even music. I mean, what a wild idea! And the idea could be they would be every artist in Spotify would have its own clubhouse room, essentially. Maybe even every, not only every artist, every genre, maybe even every album could have a room. Maybe even for really big artists, every song could have its own damn room for the really classic songs. But more importantly, the artists on Spotify could appear in those rooms, and they might even perform in those rooms, and they might even charge, schedule rooms in advance where they do virtual concert for their fans in these rooms and charge for that. And that would be a new way for artists to monetize on Spotify. What do you think of this crazy idea, Ken? And what are your thoughts about what might be happening in the near future with tech and music?
Well, I think the blessing and the curse of Spotify is that you now have 60,000 new songs a day,
right,
every single day uploaded to Spotify. So as a consumer, how do you find the stuff that you want? I
right,
think is becoming a big problem.
yep,
And as an artist, there's just so much more background noise to cut through. But the great thing about streaming is you can get straight to a niche audience. You don't have to be signed to a major label to have a career anymore.
boom,
You can find your niche and grow it and be successful. So, I think the future of streaming and live performance is, the pandemic certainly put that into perspective. Streaming is going to be the way forward, but people are also really itchy to get back to live shows too. So it's going to be
sure.
a combination of
So
both.
what about the idea that artists will be able to sell, because of this today, by the way, just a few hours ago, Facebook just announced they're now going to have this partnership with Shopify. And by the way, Google just 48 hours ago announced their partnership with Shopify, where, for example, on YouTube and on Google Maps and other Google properties, you'll now be able to click on products inside of YouTube videos, historical YouTube videos, click on a pair of shoes, and be taken to an e-commerce site where you can buy those shoes. Now,
That's huge.
right, that is huge, right? That was just announced, and they even showed it as part of their Google I/O event that we covered here live. But they came out with the text version of the press release about it today, and so did Facebook. So Facebook saying people can now sell live products on Facebook, and when you're selling your product, there'll be a little link in your live video that people can click, and you'll get paid for that. This future of social commerce, and what I'm imagining is in the Spotify version of this, with all of their 100,000 artists that are over there, those artists could now also monetize in kind of similar ways. For example, they could sell their merch through e-commerce by their partnership with Shopify, which, by the way, Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, was here in Clubhouse with the CEO of Shopify. They're clearly buddies. And if Shopify and Spotify do a partnership, now all of those artists can now have e-commerce stores as part of their Spotify profiles. And you could sell your merch directly on Spotify. You could even sell your concert tickets directly on, or tickets to upcoming concerts directly on there, contractually, if you don't have an exclusive agreement with somebody already. And it gets even crazier because I'll pause there to see what you think of that, because the next idea is even far crazier.
Well, my big question about that is, so it sounds to me like you'll be able to live stream and put your products up on screen for people to buy your merch in real time while you're performing, which, if that's the case, sounds kind of like a game changer moment to me, because I've never really seen that.
Yep.
And it seems like, fans want the free show, but every now and then they just want to feel more connected to the person that's singing their favorite song to them or something like that. So if you see it right on the screen, that impulse buy, I think, is going to be a much more powerful connector, and
Yep.
help more musicians survive.
Now, watch this part. Here's where it gets really crazy, because I had to deal with Capital in 2001. So here's my take. And I'm more of a geek these days, but as you said, with the unsigned artists can participate in Spotify and upload their content, start to develop a bit of a fan base. And Spotify watches the data very, very closely, right? They're kind of masterful at their use of data in the system for the
Yes,
recommendation engine, right? So if you're an artist and you're starting to develop a bit of a fan base in Spotify, and they see that data, they could say to you, hey, we can see that you're starting to monetize here in the Spotify platform based on your plays, because you own your streaming rights, because you're an unsigned artist and you didn't sign away your streaming rights to some record label, right? So how about this? We can see the trend of your data, and we'll give you an advance right now so you can produce some songs, maybe go on tour. And, we'll just collect your streaming fees and to pay back that loan. And better yet, we're not worried about the risk of whether or not you'll pay back this loan, because we control the exposure and the distribution. So if we need you to pay back your loan quicker, we'll just share your music to more people and pay back the loan much quicker. So there's zero risk to Spotify to give this loan. And the best part is the artist never had to sign away their rights as part of the traditional record label deals. What do you think?
Well, here's where Spotify got in trouble before attempting kind of phase one of that. They launched Spotify for Artists, and I think what ended up happening was just a ton of artists that were in the program were uploading things with samples and uncleared music, and
Right.
it just got to be a complete mess, and they had to shut down Spotify for Artists. So
Right.
I think it's always going to go back to anytime the company tries to be the record company, they have a whole different set of rights that they need to clear and manage than if they're only the streaming company.
Correct. Yeah. It gets into the publishing side of things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But to be continued, as they say. But by the way, do hang it on stage, because we touch on all kinds of these similar related issues that I think your input will be super valuable.
Thank you.
Tyler, I wanted to jump in as well, just to give some takes on that, because from the SiriusXM and Pandora side of things. So we've been doing live concerts, not charging anything. And so recently, I attended one with her. I mean, and she, I believe she just won some Grammys, things like that, and that's all free. So I think it's interesting that they're doing these performances and they're charging. So I'm curious to see how that pans out, but I'm wondering too if, a lot of times between us versus them type issue, it's always going to come down to our content offering.
Yeah.
Who is the better, let's say we want to play more in that space, which, like I said, we haven't been doing it on a serious side, really. That was more the in-person, but Pandora has been doing the live streaming concerts, and again, they're all free. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because again, with them charging, I'm curious to see what kind of response they get, especially now with COVID, hopefully sooner than later starts winding down a bit, how that's going to play out. So I think that's very interesting, but I just wanted to give a little insight on that as well.
Yep. Yeah, great point. You have this is exactly the point of this room. You working at Pandora and Sirius have the inside perspective, and let's watch, because these things are coming up. Do they start tomorrow? These live streaming things they're charging. I think they're charging $10 or something for them. Do you remember the date? They just announced them yesterday, but I think they're set for a week or so from now. But let's see what happens after the fact and circle back and see what the outcome is on that. Anyone else have something to share? I've got a huge stack of news to go through, but as usual, we have a lot of ground to cover. Anyone have something from their part of the world geographically? Norm, welcome back. What's going on in Canada?
Well, this isn't Canada. This is worldwide. I've been following this for almost 2 years. Before COVID, fungus has become a real threat. And especially since COVID, because one of the biggest fears that doctors have is that something is going to exist in the hospital when patients come in, and it'll complicate the condition that people have. And this has been shown in a number of hospitals. If people have COVID, they contract Candida auris. And also there's a real threat of fungi. The real problem, I actually tweeted you this, there's no vaccine for any known fungus that happens to humans. And sort of an under the, because of COVID. Everybody's been ignoring this, but this is an increasing threat. I don't remember if you know about the antibiotic-resistant bacteria that they had in hospitals.
Yeah.
Well, fungus has become an even bigger threat. And now if you want to be scared, if you have a cat or a dog, you're susceptible to fungus because the dog's nose is poking through the grass or wherever it is, and they're finding an awful lot of patients are contracting fungus as a result of playing with their pets. Now, it used to not be interspecies, just like wet markets have been around for 1,000 years, right? They've been in China forever, and COVID was SARS and COVID were the first indications that this was a problem. Well, because of the distribution system we have with food all over the world, and we're getting it mainly from third world countries, and this is where the biggest problem is. This is going to become an increasing problem worldwide. And we're our own worst enemies because we're very mobile and we travel around the world, and most of it has zero resistance to any of these funguses. And it's sort of an unknown threat right now, and I'm actually working on it because I work in biogenetics.
How long ago did you tweet this, Norm?
Did I tweet that?
Yeah.
What, this morning?
How many hours ago?
I don't know. It's just recently, I guess. There's an excellent scientific article. Scientific
Norm,
American.
quick question. Sorry to interrupt, Norm. Quick question. This is the black fungus you're talking about, right?
Well, it's Candida auris, and there's actually, most people, you've heard of the Irish potato famine, correct?
Yeah, of course.
I haven't, but I haven't. Does this have anything to do with the variant in India and Pakistan that's heavily coming up just now and affecting patients?
With feral cats, yes, feral cats, and also wild dogs, and
And what they're calling it in Pakistan and India is black fungus, with which there's no
that's right.
vaccine cure, and people are
That's right.
dying. And it started in India, and a lot of cases have been found in Pakistan today as well. And apparently there's no cure, and it's essentially what a non-healthcare person or non-medical
Can
expert like
someone
me would
allude to
say
a
it's a
headline? Can
death
somebody
sentence.
allude to a
I've got it.
headline that
Yeah,
relates to this?
I'm Sherry. I'm
can
Sherry.
I'd
Pardon.
like to weigh in on that. This
this
is Shelley.
Hold on.
this
So
is scary.
Faraz is what you're talking about. The black fungus. It's killed 90 people. The reason is because with the treatment of COVID, a lot of people are being pumped with steroids. So that's the latter part of the disease progression. And also with people, just basically they don't have really strong immune systems, right? So and another thing, fungi exist in the home. It's everywhere. It's not just, it's everywhere. Fungi exist in the home. If you have low, what's it called, immune defense, it's gonna take hold. It's in homes. You can't get rid of it. You need to ensure that your environment is well ventilated, which is why there's a guy who talks about sick buildings. Ventilate your home because fungi is everywhere. It kind of attaches to an organic body, and what you need to do is control the humidity in your home. Now, with people being at home for long periods of time because of this quarantine, etc., that we're seeing more and more of it, especially now with the COVID patients. It's causing blindness. It's causing neurological issues as well. And I'm surprised because actually Heyman posted something about this a few days ago, so I started looking into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got
So,
the article here from
This
Scientific
is
America, which you tweeted. I just retweeted it, Norm. So anyone who's following the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, TNATW, it's the most recent tweet. It says from Scientific American, drug-resistant killer is on the loose. The fungus, Candida auroris, a type of yeast, first appeared in the late 1990s and has spread rapidly across the globe. It is deadly to people, killing as many as 60% of those it infects, with spores that travel through the bloodstream and bloom in major organs. An analysis last year found that the yeast in 19 countries on 6 different continents. That means everywhere. Because Antarctica is a continent, I doubt it's there, so it's everywhere. The fungus can be divided into 4 distinct genetic groups. Each group, when tested, showed the ability to fight off at least one drug from 3 major classes of antifungals. That's bad news. Many samples were resistant to 2 drugs, and few samples were impervious to 3 drugs. That's holy shit bad news. So it's everywhere. It kills 60% of people, and it's impervious to drugs. So check it out on the And it's from a credible source, Scientific American.
Well, the really scary part is an awful lot of medical, a lot of the medical profession is not even aware of the threat. So they're doing things. It's just like COVID in the early days. It was getting spread just through stupidity, because people were doing things, especially in SARS. So they were doing things that were actually encouraging the spread of fungus. And that's what's happening now, is because there's no awareness of it, the whole hospital system isn't even aware of what to do, because they're aware of antibiotic resistant diseases, but they're like fungus. Like most people think of fungus as like, athlete's foot or, toe fungus or something, right? It's an athlete's problem. And, there's a lot of people that, kiss their dogs' noses, and let their cats lick them. And, it's well known that you don't hang around with cats if you're pregnant, right? Well, this is becoming, and the thing about fungus is it can be a very slow acting thing. And this is what an awful lot of people are talking about, this languor that people have after COVID, right? They recover from COVID, and then months later they're exhausted. They're tired, and they get colds. And another one is like a persistent cold. And a lot of the colds during the wintertime, they're now attributing to fungus. So, like, if you got a cold that's lasting for a long, long time, it's probably not viral or bacterial. It's probably fungal.
Wow.
So,
But Norm, there are also a lot of people who have diabetes, and these are the guys that are also very kind of vulnerable to this stuff as well,
that's right.
right? So
And
it's
Yeah,
cancer
not just
patients.
COVID that's dangerous.
that's right.
Yeah,
Exactly,
And
yeah.
reduced
fungus,
immunity.
Cancer patients are well known to have to be prone to have this fungus infections
Interesting.
they
for
are,
many years.
yes. Also, kidney patients. It can shut down your kidneys in a period of 24 hours. So
Sorry, a
it's a
final
huge threat.
question, Norm. Just one more, please. Just one more, because I know there's a large population probably wandering from the developed countries, and I'm thinking there's a correlation here, but you have to correct me along with the medical experts. Just one more. So, for example, if you've got lesser developed countries where everyone knows you have power shortages, and everyone knows that if you probably have a, God, sorry, forgive my daughter. There's every house has a little bit of fungus somewhere. It is impossible for every house to be 100% non-fungal unless you're OCD every day, right? In
That's
my
right.
humble opinion.
Exactly.
So if
Yeah.
you have lesser developed countries, power shortages, or even events like, forgive me for saying, what happened in Texas just recently, the
Mhm.
correlation of that with fungus and COVID is essentially very, very likely to occur to lead to, forgive me for saying it, but this is the only word I can think of, death.
Yes. Yes. It's a
And
huge
there's lots
threat.
of fungus in the refrigerator if the power is down, by the way.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the
I
biggest
think this
problem
is
with this is it's not
sorry,
an
go ahead.
obvious threat, and it's not thrilling and exciting and sexy like COVID. So that's the biggest issue, is that it's being ignored by the medical community and also by industry in general. And
Norm, I was going to say, so you've talked about, fungus leading to death. Fungus actually disturbs the body. And before people, they know they feel sick. They don't know why they feel sick. Black mold has been around for a long time. I don't think people are ignoring it. I think it's just very, very difficult to diagnose, right? Diagnosis is a major factor. And actually, for us, when you're talking about in terms of poor populations, I think it's really simple. Keep your house well ventilated. Just control. You can't get rid of fungus. It's absolutely everywhere. Fungi, viruses, and
Sure,
bacteria.
sure. No, the reason I asked it, Shirley, is because in lesser developed countries like India, Pakistan, there's extreme power shortages sometimes. Like you can go for 4 days without power, and especially in what would be called essentially the lesser. I'm not even sure how to define it, but for example, in Mumbai, there's a part of the city which hardly has any power. In Lahore, Karachi, same thing, and these places don't have any power sometimes for weeks or days. So that's the reason I asked for the correlation
well, if you
But
and
they've
what's being
lived,
seen there.
for centuries, right, without power too, right? So it's not an
But not
issue
with the
with
pandemic. But not with the
not with the
pandemic.
pandemic, yes. But the thing is, I think there's a balance, right? Like fungal and bacteria, everything. We have bacteria in our bodies, but fungus is also on our skin. So I mean, it's just a balance of life that these things work. Like a fungus produces the penicillin, right, against bacteria. So remember, it's a battle that happens, but if you knock that balance off, that's when we have problems. And in India, the problem is also people have been sharing medical devices because of the desperation, right? So all these airways, all these oxygen canisters. So that's what they've been saying: clean these canisters, make sure that you're not sharing it, and that's
Right,
another
but
reason why it's spreading.
there's some other stuff going on here that need to be considered. I mean, we have even fungus in our guts that we
Yep.
don't think about. It's all
Yep.
about The problem is the lack of biodiversity. That's why, and also humans going into these areas that normally we haven't been going. Like, for instance, just a kind of a quick example, the American bats have had this huge fungal infection. I think it's called like the white fungus or something. Get it on their noses, and 1 million bats have died in America, and they got it from Europe. So, what would it take for something like that to happen? That there would be a leap from these bats to humans? And there's the Aereria candida bacteria right now that I think 20 people have died of in I think it was South America and some other countries. They don't know. No one knows where it came from. They have no idea. The problem with the bacteria is that it's such an old organism that it knows how to evade amoebas. And what is like amoebas is our white cells that fights foreign objects or foreign microbes in our bloodstream. So the fungus knows how to avoid, if it would get into us, it knows how to avoid the only defense we have against it. So it's really tricky, especially if it's the hospitals. It even knows how to avoid some of these medicines. So it's really scary, actually, fungus. And
I,
Well,
it's
it's a
yeah. I
I
huge
was
just want to
also
say
risk
real
going
to
to
The
the
quickly.
say
risk
world
group,
population.
the
it's not
risk
just
group
the
for fungus is immune suppressed patients,
Like the
HIV patients,
diabetes.
cancer,
diabetes, people on
exactly.
steroids. Those are the risk. Like if you have a regular healthy immune system, you maybe sometimes have some flare-ups, but usually your body keeps it in check.
One
But
And one thing that we have to also realize in India, there's a lot of antibiotic use that shouldn't be happening. People thought that they could throw antibiotics at this viral infection, right? That's a common thing that happens even in
Yeah.
East Asia. Like people take antibiotics for everything, and it's only recently that people are realizing that you shouldn't be taking antibiotics for a common cold, which is
But
so.
Heyman, on the antibiotics, part of the treatment protocol for coronavirus does include things like, oh gosh, I forgot what it's called, one of the antibiotics. So if you look at the EMS, I forgot the name of the acronym, but it does include antifungals, anti-inflammatories, and the antibiotics as well.
Is
So
that
I think that,
is that the new
sorry,
protocol that they've designed, or?
EMS, it's been around for a while. So there's, look, I didn't
No,
come
no, but
prepared
hold
to talk
on,
about that.
No,
hold on.
no, because
No, Heyman, you know
no,
this.
well, let me
This is
wrap it
all
up
about
because
this is all
the
about the
reason
immune
why
system. Go
antibiotics
ahead. Yeah.
is too much use is because the fact that then you actually make the fungal infections more because you're killing off the endemic bacteria that's in your gut
Absolutely.
and your body, and that's why the fungal can overwhelm the body. Sorry, go ahead,
Absolutely.
Aslak.
No, I was just going to say that this is all about the immune system. So what happens with COVID, that first your immune system fights it, but
No,
then your
it's
immune system goes
suppressed.
on overdrive, and that's what gets your lungs filled with fluids. And so you
No,
have to start to balance that out.
initially, it's that it downregulates the immune system until
Right.
you get to the point where it goes into overdrive. So that's the cytokine storm.
Yeah.
But what I was also going to say is that fungi in of itself is not bad. What is bad is the mycotoxins it produces, and that is where you get the adverse reaction. So just like someone said, fungus does produce what the anti what is it aspirin? I can't remember, but
Penicillin.
antibiotics. Sorry, yeah,
That's
exactly.
for
So
like
fungus in of itself is not bad. It's the mycotoxins that produce the adverse effects.
that's right.
I'm
Yeah.
Coming
the
from the side of my teams that are in the Amazon right now, and I just want to say that mycelium, yes, there are good parts of the plant, and there are very essential medicines from the mycelium. So right now, they don't have. Sorry for interjecting, but when they talk to me about, oh, Amazon Investor Coalition is coming in, we're trying to raise capital, we're trying to bring in, they said, we have the medicine, we just need the clean water and the actions to
protect it and share it with the globe, because they are actually treating their own COVID right now using their medicinal formulas. And so I really do want to bring back that it is for them related to their gut, to the probiotics, to the mentioning of their wisdom to the world, their wisdom to the plant, as well as how can they share it and collaborate and make sure that we all regenerate. They've been living for thousands of years in these environments, so their knowledge is essential. So I just wanted to chime in for that's from Nantar Inga, who is in Macas in Ecuador. I was working on a video with her yesterday, and she's also producing in Quito her own new kombucha company using the medicinal herbs so that people even in Quito can reboost their immune systems after COVID. Thank you.
Thanks for chiming in. We appreciate that. I'm not going to stop open mouth kissing my dogs, but yeah.
You
Oh my
should.
God.
What? You've been doing
I'm
that?
open mouth kissing my dogs. You can't stop me.
Oh
Oh
God.
my
You don't have
God.
to go that far, man.
No,
Pandemic's not
but
that
Recipe,
bad.
No, well,
recipe.
not on the first date. I mean, it's only after a
Guys,
while.
can I
After
say
I mean,
something?
once you get to know
Tyler,
the dogs.
All right. No French kissing dogs, guys.
no, but
Tyler,
I have to say this real quick that they are doing the fecal implants to correct all kinds of different hard infections in the gut.
lovely.
So
It's a huge area it's burgeoning, that is going to be, I think, a lot bigger with microbiomics. That
That's
I think there's so many things. I mean, you have fungus in your gut. You have phages, which is kind of like it's kind of like a virus, but it's not.
Microphages.
Yeah, right. And then you have, of course, viruses, bacteria. So it's a just big world in there, and we have no idea what's going on. So,
there's
but
a
there's interesting research how it's connected to your mental health, your, obesity, and so forth. I mean, it's
yeah.
just
Well,
amazing.
That's just a
one thing
Hey,
we've
can I?
there's a
realized.
real shitload of opportunity in that business. Yeah.
Tyler,
Oh my
can I say
God!
something?
Oh my God.
you could donate
Uh,
actually your poop.
You can you can use macrophages. So they use them to cure other diseases. They looked at using macrophages to try and cure Lyme disease, the spirochete bacteria. So that's the thing. I don't think anything of itself is bad. It depends on its use and also the things like I said, the fungi. It's not bad because it's got the positives but also the negatives, and we just need to try and control the
Shirley,
negatives.
Well,
Yes.
Shirley,
the thing that we learned in
just
COVID
one
is that,
last point here. Norm, if I might just say something
of
here.
course,
See,
yeah.
I understand everything that the medical professionals and the much more intellectuals than I on the subject is saying. But if you just forget the medical side of it for 1 second, okay, and look at what I'm saying here. When you live in the slums of India or in Pakistan or in Africa, and you make a minimal wage, which doesn't even allow you food, your number one concern is how to feed your children and how to feed yourself. Hygiene comes secondary. Hence, that sort of hygiene combined with the sort of fungus that everyone is referring to that could be of danger, combined with working in houses or cities where you go to a richer segment of the population to work in their houses, etc., combined with that sort of population, then traveling out to cities everywhere else, combined with COVID, is something that concerns me, not just from a global standpoint, but more so also from the perspective of that part of the poorer population not having the means to even get to a hospital. That's the
Faraz,
reason that I
Yeah.
was trying to make
Well,
these
I
correlations.
understand where you're
And I'll
going.
stop there.
If
one
I
thing
may
we,
address that,
yeah,
if I may address that, please. I
of
think
course.
education is very important because we're all learning as we go along, right? I didn't know anything about bacteriophage. I just didn't until quite recently, right? So I think that the education is really important. To control fungi, you can't get rid of it. Punto e basta. What you can control is the humidity in your environment. So education about that you don't need a specific fan. Not everyone needs to get a HEPA filter. HEPA filters do help, by the way. But if you tell people, try and keep your environment aerated, you know what I mean? I think that is important. You don't need to buy
Okay.
special
I
equipment.
think we're
Okay.
getting a little bit too much. 1 second,
But it's
guys,
Can
because
interesting.
I
I
think
can I
we're
just make a
thinking too
comment,
much. Yeah,
please?
yeah. Sorry, do you mind if I
Heyman,
go
I
guy,
can't
girl,
believe
guy,
you're
girl, guy,
saying that.
girl, guy? Hold on.
We're getting
No, no, no,
Hold
no.
on.
I think we're just going a little bit too much into the privilege part here because we don't like people have lived without fridges and air
Exactly.
conditioners and all this stuff for ages. All right. Because if you think about it, our diets, we've evolved, including our diets, to actually accommodate for the fact that they didn't have heating, they didn't have cooling or like preserving food. So, for instance, turmeric and spices in India and Pakistan were used basically to preserve food and to prevent infections. Like this is the basic human rights is what we're talking about. Water is one of the most basic human rights that
Okay.
they need. Like if
good,
they can't
Tyler.
Thank you, Heyman.
wash and clean things,
You got it.
it doesn't
Yep,
work.
we got it. Okay. Rather than go on about wasabi and all the
Yep.
antibacterial foods
Yeah.
in the world, let's get
Oh,
back into tech news. So
yeah. Can I just say?
I'm
Can
going
I
to
just
turn
say
it
one
to
thing?
Justin. Is there please save us, my friend? Is there any news, kind of political tech news today?
Yes, that medical discussion was fascinating, but I think the people want Bitcoin, folks, and that's what we're going to get into.
Yes.
Um,
I was
and
waiting for this.
Somebody shoot me.
Here we go. No, it's cryptocurrencies in general.
Yep.
So you can take that as you may. I have two related headlines. Obviously, markets are crashing around the world. Our esteemed colleague and correspondent in Beijing, David Chang, is losing his hair over this. His clients are saying sell, 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 sell. And when
Losing
something
his
like this
hair. My God.
and when something like this happens, it gets the attention of US regulators. So there are two different headlines here. One on the positive note, if you have Bitcoin investment, Republican Tom Emmer has reintroduced a bill on Monday, couldn't come soon enough, to essentially protect Bitcoin investors and crypto investors from tax liabilities. It's called the Safe Harbor for Taxpayers with Forked Assets Act.
Justin, how much do you think he got paid for that to lobby at the right time when Bitcoin is crashing?
Well,
Was crashing.
so he introduced this in 2018. He introduced this in 2019,
2018, when we had the high and the crash, then he came
and
in.
the Internal Revenue, he introduced this, had nothing to do with the crash. It had everything to do with guidance presented by the IRS. As they said, any new cryptocurrency generated by hard forks when blockchains split into two networks, each with a native asset, would count as taxable income. This Republican said, no, 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 not so fast. And he introduced this piece of legislation. So that's just kind of table setting. Let's get rid of the conspiracy theory stuff and just set the table with that. In addition to that, there has been a recent hearing on Capitol Hill that kind of goes over crypto assets. And when these things just sink and dive, think of Robinhood with GameStop. It was all fun until Robinhood stopped the trading or stopped the I think it was the buying of options on GameStop, and that pissed off the retail investors and everybody on Capitol Hill. They saw blood in the streets, and they, oh man, do they want to run into this and get their headline in the media. The same thing is happening for cryptocurrency, but it was kind of, I believe, before this crash. So this crash will definitely increase the emphasis that your congressmen and women see, because they see an opportunity to get into the news. And I am scrolling. Okay, here's the quote that I wanted to read. The SEC's recent warnings of the dangers of Bitcoin follow calls for more muscular government action, establishing a federal watchdog with a clear mandate to oversee cryptocurrency's regulatory gray area. Here is the quote, folks. Right now, the exchanges trading in these crypto assets do not have a regulatory framework, either at the SEC or our sister agency, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, for those who know. SEC Chair Gary Gensler told Congress earlier in May in one of his first remarks on cryptocurrency regulation. Right now, there's not a market regulator around these crypto agencies, and thus there's really not protection against fraud or manipulation. And he continued to say basically that this administration will not be a friend to non-regulation in this sector. And then overseas officials have been even stronger. And we're going to quote which we already did on this show, the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey. I'm going to say this very bluntly again, said the Bank of England. Buy them only if you're prepared to lose all your money. So this kind of coincides with China's recent actions, and I think it shows that everybody should be ready for serious government intervention. And while there isn't necessarily bipartisan support, if these things keep crashing and enough people keep losing money and there are retail investors that are losing money, you could see action on this, because that's kind of what gives Congress the impetus to act. So I wanted to bring up those two headlines and kick it to Tyler or the group to discuss.
Can I?
Yep, you can.
Thank you so much. I thought that was really interesting, Justin. Really well put. I also found an article. So JP Morgan's analysts have come out and basically said that large institutions are dumping Bitcoin in favor of gold. I have seen that. The gold price is on the rise. Interestingly enough, however, JP Morgan have also said that they see Bitcoin tracking up to 140,000 in the long term. So the theory is, this is based on a theory of them pegging Bitcoin to gold, right? So I feel that, last night, I don't know, but I was in the crypto room and they said that a ton of money had been, I think 6 trillion or something billion had been wiped off. Don't quote me on the figures, but also not a lot of money is poured back in. And I actually feel that people are gaming the system so they can buy cheaper and acquire more. I don't know, I don't have proof, but those who believe in the crypto, let me finish. Those who believe in this project are going to hold. I've literally just bought into a dip. So call me mad, but hey, I think long term, this has got a bit more to run.
Can I pop in here quickly?
Sure.
Is that right, Tyler?
Yeah.
I can't believe the coincidence of this. I've literally just come off of a call with a lifelong friend of mine who I haven't spoken to a while, who's basically been incognito from everyone in our circle. And it turns out that he's just spent the last 3 months learning sort of day trading and minute by minute trading and whatnot, and studying crypto. And the last 2-hour conversation has been on this topic. And he's just taken me through all of his sort of tactics that he's been using and all of the things that he's been looking at and the research that he's been doing and the books like, Trading in the Zone and that kind of thing. And he's introduced me to the groups that he's been talking to and the Discord and stuff. And he's gone through and shown me his records and whatnot. And the guy is making an absolute killing, not because he's a genius, because he's sat there for the last 3 months and has monitored some of
What's
the
the
major
point of this?
coins.
What's the point of this summary?
Hold on, because the point is the manipulation is there. The manipulation and the patterns and everything are there and blatant. And it
So let's talk about.
is there.
I think we had
But Kieran's
GameStop, right?
question is good. Kieran's question is good. So there are day traders out there, and I
No, but
appreciate
that's
that.
that's
Yeah.
that's something, Cal. We know that on every asset, when there's a window of opportunity, always when there's an arbitrage opportunity. The snakes, when they smell blood, everyone goes for it. That's just the way the market is, right? So I think GameStop. Someone talked about GameStop, right? So the reason that the regulators around the world, they're still not paying is because it's still not bleeding into the main financial system. It's still only 1 or 2% of the global financial assets, this crypto space. So they're not really concerned about it. The reason that when GameStop come and caught the regulators' attention is because it will start bleeding into everything that they regulate. So they quickly came on, and they had the power to get Robinhood to make sure that they can only take one side of the trade. So they have that much power. So what will happen in the crypto space, if they really want to go after it, the fact that Binance is submitted to US to get a regulatory approval so they can expand into US clients, they can literally ask Binance to let them into investigate in terms of all the stuff that they've been doing. So just imagine that, right? So there's a cat and mouse going on between exchanges and regulators. But they know that, look, it's just a slippery slope. So let's just not come here and just talk about this space being an opportunity and there's money to be made. And after you make the money has to come back to your bank. That's where they have the power. So unless you are living in a cuckoo land where the money is going to be floating in this kind of a virtual space for the rest of your life, yeah, go ahead and speculate. I think good luck with that.
Can I just step in here? So if you look at, and I'm no trader, but looking at the math, So yesterday, basically, Tether lost its peg against the dollar. And then what you saw is all the whales bots that have been driving the market
Yep.
and manipulating the market for the last 6 months
So let's
in
give
sort of
someone some context on Tether, right? So Tether operates in a way what is a fractional reserve system does in a real banking world. Basically, 10% they're holding, and then they leverage the rest of it without the regulatory oversight. So Tether, recently they published an article. There was a headline saying that they disclosed how much of that liquid, how much of that is one to one. They said they hold for every $1, every $1 they have a $1, one Tether backed against a dollar, right? So if you dig deeper into what they're actually holding, most of it is linked to U.S. Treasury, which again, U.S. have the power. As soon as something like the market sell-off we saw, the first thing they're going to be liquidating is that most liquid asset, which is the Treasury, right? So again, Tether it's been doing a lot of shady stuff. Again, when they go after it, we'll learn as we go along. So that's again, please let's not go into Tether is a solid one-to-one peg, which is not.
No. I'm not saying that. That's not what I was saying, Kieran. I was highlighting that. I mean, Tether is basically a Ponzi. I mean, the treasuries you talk about, there aren't. They've got commercial paper. The commercial paper are basically Tether loans to exchanges. And so what you
Exactly.
saw is when the peg against the dollar, the Tether peg, when it broke, then you had basically all of these scripts going
Just like the
haywire.
2008,
That's why the
CDS.
exchanges shut down. And that's why you saw massive injections of Tether yesterday. You saw close to 300 billion in Tether volume yesterday.
Because people running out to liquidate the most liquid
Yeah,
thing that they're holding.
because everything basically is leveraged in Tether, and if suddenly Tether loses its value, which is what you saw initially Tether drop down to nearly zero point 0.8 of a dollar. You've got to liquidate these highly leveraged positions, because these are all derivatives. These are whales using sort of 1
Medium
million
to,
Tether
yeah.
placements leveraged 100 times. I mean, this is what it is, and I sit back and I look at all of the people that talk about sort of the cryptocurrency and the markets. But what they need to understand is, they're not the big players and they're not driving this. And if you look at the trades over the last 6 months, it is a classic Wyckoff distribution campaign. This has been going on in financial markets for the last, since Wyckoff himself, 1930s. And this is there are lots of bull traps here.
All right. We
In
let's
conclusion, kiss your dogs.
yes.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay. I've got a couple headlines I got to share. We're going to circle back. Don't worry if you've got one. We will get to it. Right.
I've got a super interesting one from India.
Hold on to it for a second.
And I got one from
Guys,
Twitter.
just one last thing on the crypto side. I'm not sure if you saw it. I didn't get a chance to look at the breaking news, but maybe the last two gentlemen could comment on it. Treasury wants anything over 10K in crypto transfers reported to them. Anyone know anything about this?
Sounds like government gonna government.
Yep. Let's move on, and we'll circle back
No,
around
but
in the next hour.
that's I think that's what this is the beginning of the end. I think of the government controls are now. It was never clear how the governments were going to behave, right? And now the governments
Right.
are all starting to show their cards, and it's not looking
Well,
good.
Tyler, it was very clear to me from the beginning.
And so you shorted all Bitcoin when it reached 60,000.
No, Tyler, I think what she's trying to say is in the platform tech news around the world, we always been not unbiased. We just talk the facts. I
Yeah.
think that's a great, for our audience to see, right? We weren't that, 100,000 laser eye. I think Ben is, except Ben, I guess.
No, I mean,
Which is,
we'll see. So there's
yeah.
I want to shift gears here for a second. There's some very interesting news that I'm just going to run through. Google is now opening their very first store, like an Apple store, but a Google store. Anyone know where it's going to be? I do. It's in
New York City.
New York City. Look at the kill.
Yeah.
Smart kid in the class, this kid. So why New York? Because they have.
They're always following me.
Because they have. It's their second largest workforce is in New York City apparently, and it's very close to their kind of New York City campus. And it is looking at the photos. I just tweeted it out from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account at TNATW. You can see a photo of it. It looks like, well, an Apple store. And they say at the Google store, customers will be able to browse and buy an extensive selection of products made by Google, ranging from Pixel phones to Nest products, Fitbit devices to Pixel books and more. and pick up their orders in the store if you order them online. Throughout the store, visitors will be able to experience how our products and services work together in a variety of immersive ways, which we're excited to share more about when the doors open. And we'll have experts on hand to help visitors get the most out of their device. Sounds like it might be a genius bar. We will see if they enable repairs and whatnot. And the store,
Michael, where else do Google have their stores, and where else will they revamp their stores? You know the answer to that, right?
I do not.
It's going
Inform
to
me
be
here.
Best Buy. It's a store in a store. This is their game, right? So they'll revamp the spaces, and so then you'll have like platform to platform to platform. That's the only, otherwise Best Buy dies, right? So in the US, that they'll do these individual stores, but they won't be able to do what Apple did, because Apple started with a whole different premise around its stores.
But
In
that
the
makes
end,
sense, what you just said.
they'll have a few of their own, and then they'll distribute it through, I guess the only the player that's left is Best Buy. If there were other players, they would use them.
That's the smart option, though. It's the only way that they could compete.
Yeah, it says the store will be in Chelsea area of New York and will be part of their urban campus in the Chelsea neighborhood, because Google has taken over Chelsea, with it where it is home to many of their 11,000 plus Google New York City employees. Google has been in New York for the past 20 years, and we view the store as a natural extension of our longtime commitment to the city. The new Google Store is an important next step in our hardware journey of providing the most helpful experience of Google wherever and whenever people need it. We look forward to meeting many of our customers and hearing their feedback on the store, so we can continue to explore and experiment with the possibilities of a physical retail space build upon experience. Now, it gets more interesting, because friends of ours up in Sweden at Chalmers University near Gothenburg have a truly mind-blowing new announcement, which I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account, and you really got to see this to believe it. Researchers from Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden have developed a concept for a rechargeable cement-based battery. Now, that sounds mildly interesting, right? A cement-based battery. However, until you realize their ambition is to turn a city, the actual city, because if you imagine a city as a dirt lot, right, before you build the city, and then you have to lay the concrete down over square kilometers, that concrete has a metal grid inside of it of rebar. And then the buildings become the cathodes, and the city becomes a battery.
That's so cool.
I like where this is going.
Hi, Tyler.
Yeah.
And we get fried in between.
I actually sent that to you, and one of the use cases that the university has said is that if you add solar panels to the buildings, then to highways and bridges using the same cement, the sensors will be able to detect cracking and corrosion in highways, and that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Looking at the American infrastructure that's corroding.
The image in the photo is truly
Matrix.
one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. It's kind of mind blowing. So it says one day the technology could turn an entire building into a massive energy storage device akin to a giant battery. The technology has some interesting possibilities, as cement is one of the most commonly used building materials in the entire world. The concept involves a cement-based mixture with small amounts of short carbon fibers added to increase the conductivity and flexible toughness of the material. Also embedded inside the cement mixture is a metal coating carbon fiber mesh with iron. So they're basically adding stuff to the concrete, and that enables the concrete to function as a battery, and then the buildings become cathodes and iodes, and then the whole city, as you see in the image, the city is a battery. It's truly mind-blowing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Wild.
Well, it sounds like a cool idea. Also keep in mind that cement is 8% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. 8%.
But what if
just cement alone?
What if could it not pay for itself in terms of energy usage?
Yeah, it would help, because I guess it would offset the building of other batteries which have their own carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But it's and also you have in the future, and maybe maybe this thing, we have to learn how to make cement using renewable energy was
That
very
too.
difficult. And
Yeah.
the other thing about cement people don't know is half of those emissions, so 4% of global emissions, come not from the energy used to make the cement, but just the chemical reaction of the cement gives off CO2, and that's half of its emissions. So you can't fix that with renewable energy. You have to find other
Yeah.
ways.
Dan,
There's some other things also with the sand. I mean, there's not enough sand right now. That's a big problem. And another thing is that I want to mention real quick is that there are actually there are some interesting developments around how to what you just said, how to make concrete in a much better way than using cement that I won't go into right now. But there is some interesting stuff going on there too.
Yeah, and the X Prize just announced, I mean, it was like a month ago, I guess, the winners of the carbon, I forget what it was called, but carbon utilization X Prize. And there were two winners. Both of them were companies that are making cement by putting CO2, taking captured CO2 and putting it into the cement. One, I think, Solidia and Carbon Cure. No, actually, I'm sorry. It was another company, but anyway, that was a big deal for them.
Dan, if you
Nice.
could, if you could check out our Twitter account and check out that article about the citywide battery thought, just to read it and follow tomorrow. Next time we meet in the future, I'd love, if you could do a little more homework on it, just to see if it's interesting, because I can get easily connected to the team at Chalmers University in Sweden. I have a lot of connections there as it is.
Okay, Mr. Big Shot.
No. Oh, yeah. Well, wow. Look at me name dropping Chalmers University in Gothenburg. Woohoo.
Gotta
Yo.
give you shit.
Yeah, that's
No
all
one
right.
else will.
I'll
That's
try.
funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. That's not your biggest name drop,
No,
right?
that's not far from it. Not in the last 24 hours. Other interesting news happening in the Twitter sphere. Twitter is letting anyone apply for verification for the first time since 2017. It also previewed potential changes upcoming to profiles. So if you want to join the blue checkmark club, I can name drop myself now as one of those blue checkers. Looks like Justin is as well, or clapping. Anyways,
I'm clapping for you,
yeah,
Tyler.
everyone. Hey, what can I say? I'm part of the elite blue check club. Twitter is relaunching its public verification program, allowing anyone to apply for a coveted blue check mark. The company also previewed potential changes coming to profiles and the upcoming label for automated accounts. Interesting. To make the grade for verification, users will have to meet Twitter's revamped verification criteria, which includes having an account of a public interest that falls under one of 6 different types of categorizations, as well as being authentic, notable, and active. Here are the 6 categories: government, companies, brands, and organizations, news organizations and journalists, entertainment, sports and gaming, activists, organizers, and other influential individuals. And now you know why I got my check mark. You'll be able to apply for verification in the account settings tab at some point over the next few weeks. Once you've applied, Twitter says you can expect a response within a few days, but the timeline could could take up to a few weeks depending on the volume of applications, which I can assure you will be astronomically high. All applications will be evaluated by humans, Twitter said in a briefing with journalists this week. So there you go. And by the way, one of the very important reasons to become verified on Twitter is because when you go into Twitter Spaces, if you have a verified account, you are instantly put at the very top of the room. Unlike Clubhouse, where they put friends or people connected to the speakers just below the stage, in Twitter they don't do that. What they do is they put the verified Twitter accounts just below the stage. So if you have a Twitter verified account, you'll be seen right next to the speakers. Actually, there's no real separation between the stage and the speakers in Twitter Spaces. So, which, by the way, MC Hammer seems to be doing a lot more stuff in Twitter Spaces these days and less stuff on Clubhouse, interestingly. But I just tweeted this out from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, which we do encourage you to follow, because we do Twitter Spaces events on our days off, which is on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, because we meet here Monday to Friday twice a day, where you can see the schedule by clicking on the title of this room. And what's next? I guess we can pause there.
Tyler,
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you see? I just retweeted. I don't know if we covered it. Sorry, I was in a meeting. Microsoft nixing Explorer and
Yeah,
going with Edge.
that's right. So Internet Explorer is now going to be killed, and they are announcing it a year in advance, which is kind of interesting. I suppose there's that many legacy companies that use it that they want to give them a 1 year heads up that they've got 1 year left to use Internet Explorer, which at one point was so dominant as the default browser that Microsoft nearly got split up over it because the entire internet was going through Internet Explorer until Apple kind of came back on the scene with Safari, and then Firefox, and then Chrome really came in and kicked their ass, and so much so that they are now sunsetting Internet Explorer. I didn't never thought we would see the day. It was that dominant that it's hard to imagine that it's going to go away. But yeah, that's it is also one of the big news stories. As well, you've got the Apple TV 4K is now in the hands of many reviewers, and many are saying it is faster than all the competition, and the new Siri remote is very good with an easy to use click wheel and a power button that is very effective. And then there's also the new iPad Pros that just came out, and believe it or not, the reviewers are saying it's too powerful for most users. I don't think I've ever heard of a review that said the device is too good and too powerful because it has.
Well, the thing is they were already. I was discussing this with a couple of people the other day because iPad was already light years ahead of anyone even close to them in terms of tablets, and so kind of making this iPad with an M1 in it was the first time I felt like Apple just really did something super assholeish. They're like 10 years ahead of everything else now. It's like buying any other tablet literally just doesn't even make sense at this point. But that's why reviewers are saying it's too like what there's nothing you can't do on it at this point.
Yeah, so check this out. So because here's one of the now this is important, everybody. Listen to this. This is crazy. We were talking about this in the previous session. Let me lower down the music here. This is gonna get good, y'all. So this new iPad, the iPad Pro, has an M1 processor, and it's all souped up and hot to trot, and it's got a brand new camera in it because, now listen, this is crazy, y'all. This is crazy. This is the biggest idea we've had here in a little bit. So, because we are now in COVID for a year, Apple realized that everybody's using their devices for video calls for work, Zoom and whatnot, right? Because we're all working remotely. And Apple knows that the cameras in their MacBooks and the front-facing cameras in their iPads and on their laptops and on their desktop are not the best, honestly. And in some cases, kind of shitty, honestly, on the MacBook Pros especially. People have been saying now for a year, why is the camera on the MacBook Pro so shitty? I have to go buy a USB camera to use for my Zoom calls, which seems strange. Where there's a camera built into the thing, why do I go buy another one? Upgrade your shitty camera, Apple, right? Okay, so Apple understands this. Everyone's using their cameras now on their devices way, way, way more than they ever have in the past because we're working remotely, right? So here's where it gets really interesting. The iPad Pro comes out, and one of the things all the reviewers are saying today in the past 24 hours is, holy shit, the front-facing camera on this thing is amazing for video calls. Like, holy shit, amazing. Like, the fidelity is so good that you can put your iPad on your kitchen counter, stand back 10 feet, and it zooms in on you when you're on your video call. And it
follows you around, too.
Right, and it follows you around as you move from the refrigerator to the microwave.
It also adjusts for other people. If a kid walks in, it automatically adjusts to get them into the picture.
But here's the point. The camera is way, way, way upgraded. Now, here's why this gets really crazy really quickly. Because we learned recently that in the near future, with the VR goggles that are coming out, Apple's going to announce theirs at their WWDC event on June 7th. You heard it here first. But also, Facebook also has eye tracking inside of their VR goggles, and both of these HTC Vive, their VR headset, Facebook Oculus with their VR headset, and the new Apple headset all partner with a company from Sweden, from Stockholm, called Tobii, and Tobii does eye tracking. But there's much more to eye tracking than you would ever imagine. As we tweeted about recently from the Tech News Around the World Twitter account, you'll see an image where due to this eye tracking technology, Facebook and Google and Apple will be able to detect from your eye in these VR headsets your gender, your age, your geographical origin, your physical health, if you have a concussion or sleeping disorders, your cultural background, your mental health, if you have depression, PTSD, autism, just to name a few, your drug consumption, if you've been on alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, MDMA, etc. And all of that data is now usable as part of their ad network because advertisers.
Wait, you're saying that they can currently track all of that from your eye?
No,
Oh yeah.
they will very soon.
They track your eyes, they infer the data from it.
Right. Now check this out. That's in the VR headsets that are coming out right now. Apple's will come out on June 7th. And that's why Apple is launching an ad network, because now they're going to have access to all this data. But it gets way, way, way crazier. Are you ready for the big reveal here? So,
Go deep.
in the last session, here we go, baby. In the last session, our friend Dave from Ireland said, "Hey, Tyler, this new iPad has this truly remarkable camera for the front-facing camera. Is it possible that that camera is good enough to get the data it needs from your eye?" And I said, "Dave, holy shit, it might be. Let me ask my friend who's the founder of Tobii, this eye tracking company in Stockholm." So I pinged my friend John to see if he could join us today. He said he couldn't join us, but guess what I did? I said, "John, I've got a question. Could this new iPad and the camera in this iPad, could it do this? And can the VR goggles get all of, I showed him the image with all of this data points. Can these VR headsets actually take all of this data?" I said, "Quick question, John, will Oculus give Facebook the ability to use all of these data points in their ad network?" And he says, "I think Facebook will be very careful to access and use all of this data, and it will need approval." And then I said, "Okay, how about all of the upgraded cameras in the new iPad and future Apple laptops that come out?" And guess what he says? He says, upgraded cams in the laptops will be able to, if they add a light and an extra little processor for $5.
Only the tech news room, guys.
But the question is, will they? Because they're pushing privacy at the moment, even more than ever. So will they? Because if they did that and then it came out, would it not ruin them?
They'll give you the choice,
No,
and they'll say,
But that's not.
"Do you want
it's the other way
to
around.
downgrade your camera to the old style, or do you want the upgraded super selfie camera?" And if you want the
But
upgraded super selfie camera, just click here.
No, if
yeah,
you
but
look
what
at
I'm
the
saying is,
privacy thing, no. If you look at the privacy things, right? The privacy things, Apple says we won't give the data to outside people, but Apple still has your data. It's other players in the globe don't have the data. That's it.
So actually, I think that's not correct. So the way the Apple, so there is recently people by using the Freedom of Information Act to get to release what are the data they've been collecting. So Apple do not keep the way the data is kept by Google and Amazon's and Facebook. So Facebook is very specific. They store everything about you, from your phone number to the addresses. So they haven't been, because I think clearly that's because of the nature in which their business is, right? They are more of a product focused, while Google and Facebook is more of an advertisement. So I think they've always been very clear on that, because just one small move can destroy the entire
Yeah,
business line. Right?
they're not
But
going
the
to.
exactly, that's my
ad
point.
tech
Yeah.
thing coming in, Kieran, that can change, right? That's just a software update.
No,
Well,
they.
what they would end up doing is, because Apple, the way Apple stores data, it's stored on your device in a secure enclave that even Apple
Correct.
doesn't access
On its
unless,
own
and this
processor.
is
That's correct.
exactly, and they have a chip very specifically designed for this inside of inside of their sock. And so the thing about it is, because Apple, most people trust Apple in terms of gathering health data and things like that. They've been very, very, if you notice, and if you remember back all the way to the first Apple Watch, what made the Apple Watch so interesting in the first place was they partnered up with something like 50 of the world's top, everything from every different health department there was, every different school that was studying anything about health. They hired all these athletes, and they really, really put that watch through a rigorous training system, so that watch could give you very, very accurate health data. And this is more important to people, and this is the type of data that people are willing to kind of trust to somebody who's putting in that amount of work. Whether you want to chalk that up to marketing or really what they're after, is neither here nor there. But the bottom line is, if Apple puts that button in front of me, would you like to know about we can tell you this, and this, and we can get this to your doctor in these situations. All you have to do is press this button, upgrade to this camera, and allow us to blah 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 blah. People are going to do that because they trust it. They already been trusting it on their watch and on their phone.
But
So,
Michael,
so
how does the ad network work if they're not going to use your data?
They are.
But that's my point, is that if you give them this is how Apple operates. That data lives in an enclave that they can access if you give them that permission. It's all about the permissions, and
But
that's
Michael,
where
but how do you? But the thing about iPhone, children, uses our phone. But Facebook and Google, there's a certain age limit, right? Facebook clearly makes in
right.
their disclaimer you had to be 13 plus. So they made that very clear. So here, through iPhone, my child is 5 years old using my phone, and just imagine that data. I find out that's being used for, it's just the
exactly,
way.
yeah.
So you had to be very careful here, buddy. I just don't think that even as a parent, if I was given a choice that okay, specific data, how do I know
Okay.
they can differentiate whether it's my son or whether
The
it's my
reason for that, Kieran, is the word informed consent. How can you legally prove that someone has been informed that they have given their consent? So but legally you can't prove an under a 13-year-old is enough informed to understand what is the consequence of this. But in Sweden, for instance, you say, well, in the law, like if you would actually be prosecuted for something like this, the realistic part would be probably that it would be maybe a 15-year-old, but that's why it's the 13.
Yeah, but like the 14.5 update proved that like with Facebook, most people do not give their consent to share data.
This is a different model, though, right?
Right. That's
Facebook is a
Facebook.
totally advertising-based
Right.
model,
Cookie
while
tracing.
Apple was a hardware-based.
Correct.
So I mean,
so
they
so we
won't
had this
vulture it.
But here's the
so we
thing.
had this Indian case.
Hold on.
What's up,
But you have to
Indian?
understand the financial opportunity for Apple to make an ad network based on this insane new level of data that Google
It's huge.
and Facebook has never had.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely.
worth $1 trillion.
Exactly.
Nothing will stop them from doing it for $1 trillion.
No,
No,
nothing.
but dude, having a camera in your bedroom
Yeah.
is going to kill their company. Period.
No, it's not a camera in your
No, I
bedroom.
think
It's
No, I
on
know,
your
but I
phone.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a laptop, right? If you open up a laptop or a computer,
Yeah.
that's most often in a person's bedroom or anywhere, right? That's personal. It's
I
going to
think we are
actually,
just taking this too far, guys. I think the
yeah,
reason it is it's targeted on the content. I just see like a lot of these influencers, right? They just want the camera to be tracking them so they
yeah.
can make it more dynamic. I think that's the initial focus. I think I'm sure that in 5-10 years down the line they probably go into that. They're just trying to make the camera so it's become friendly to whether the content creators, because there has been I
But
look at
hang
my
on.
feed on Instagram there.
You think it's a coincidence that Apple it's well understood that Apple's building an ad network right now because they just tried to hire the ad guru from Facebook, right? That was very public in the
And
last 48 hours.
and I just
You think that's
and
a
Tyler,
Remember,
I
he
just
coincidence?
got
You
wanna
think it's a
fired because of one
coincidence?
no,
stupid.
Hold on. You think it's a
no, it's not a
coincidence
coincidence.
that they are building out an ad network for the first time in their company's history? No, sorry, second time. They bought Quattro Wireless, my friend Jen's company from Boston. Oh Jesus, 2006, and that didn't go
So
so well
Tyler,
actually. So in
We
this,
the
also have
latest
another coincidence, though, that people need to be aware of. Apple's also, quote unquote, privacy changes are directed, many believe, at hurting Facebook's ads. And
Yep.
Mark Zuckerberg has said so, like a whiny little baby that he is, in public. So now we have two coincidences, Tyler.
right.
Yeah, and I just want to add,
Exactly.
Tyler. I just want to add something.
Go ahead.
When you do those facial recognition, you don't need the face; you just need the eyes. Remember this.
Right.
You just
So,
need the
Tyler, let me
eyes.
put a capitalistic perspective on this. A lot of the times in investment banking, Tyler, for example, do you remember a couple of weeks ago, Goldman Sachs made a headline saying they are building their crypto trading desk again,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
More
You'll be
crypto.
surprised. You'll be surprised how. No, let me just try this thing together. How this capitalistic thing works. Sometimes they want to be way ahead of the game just to throw it out there. All these hires, they're happy to pay 10 million guaranteed bonus just for 3 years for this guy to come in, just to send a message to Facebook and the competitors. We are on your tail. But that could be just to hoodwink, so that their real intention is somewhere else. It's just the
Guys,
fact
but
that
the
they are.
biggest thing, like we're missing one more thing, right? 3D world, emojis, right? And a closed garden. What could they create? Maybe another Facebook style social network where they could actually do the ads? That's where I think they could be going too, right? They don't have a social network right now, except for their iMessage sort of network, right? So I think they could, with emojis, maybe a metaverse, they could create the next social media giant. Like
It's a
they
Yeah,
could
good point.
destroy
wasn't
Facebook and
Apple
become
Point
their
on
rumored
own.
to
that.
come out with
Trust
AR
me,
glasses?
Apple is not going to build a social network, but they will build an ad network, and we know they're building an ad network because they tried to hire Facebook's ad guru, Antonio. But to build an ad network, you need lots of data, and
Right.
this data is the mother lode, it's the holy grail of all data.
But Tyler,
But
they already have half a social network, which is iMessage and FaceTime.
But that doesn't give you the data that this would. I mean, they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot in terms of the amount of data they'll be able to collect. They'll have to do it
yeah,
very carefully, knowing that how governments are about data, particularly the EU. Blah blah blah. Yeah, they're going to navigate that minefield like they've done for 20 years, but they're going to do it
It
to the best of their ability.
and it's a much easier and better fit for them to just not to parrot what Tyler's saying. But mobile marketing advertising, app store folks, they can just create the best, absolute best type of advertising for that sector, and then they could provide analytics. They could provide everything. It could be a
But by the way,
one-stop
and
shop
It
Apple
here.
might
Maps.
justify the
hang on.
30%. It justifies
The
the 30%.
problem that the problem that the governments have around data is the sharing of the data between Apple and Facebook.
Right.
And Apple said, okay, fine, we're
Correct.
not going to share the data with Facebook. Fuck Facebook.
But Tyler,
We're going
that's
to keep the data ourselves and build our own ad network.
That's
And
exactly
that's
what
not
it
a
is.
problem
Yeah.
for the government because it's
Totally.
so
Apple's data. We're using it for ourselves. No one else is going to see it. It's totally private. It's totally anonymized. It never leaves the
Exactly.
Apple ecosystem. And the government's like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Carry on.
yeah,
And
just
And it's
Facebook is
just
proprietary.
kind of
imagine Tyler,
confined for
Apple
their
having
I will
advertising
like to
on the
add a
Facebook
perspective,
platform.
building
However,
on what
Apple will
Michael
be
said.
able to, Facebook will be confined to their advertising on their platform, but Apple will be able to advertise on every single damn Apple phone and app.
Yep.
And this is why
Now let's
this is why Facebook
I did
needs
hear
Oculus because Oculus gives them the same data that we're talking about through the eye
exactly.
tracking.
Well, the current Oculus doesn't do it, but the future
Correct.
one, the 3
Yeah.
and the 4 will. But I did hear a lady's voice. Who was that?
I think it was
That
Lana.
was
Susie.
Susie from Denmark,
Hey,
Susie.
Susie.
Okay,
focusing
go
on.
ahead.
Hi, focusing on silver economy. I just want to comment on Michael's very, very interesting insights into how people's health data is protected on Apple devices. Because I think that this comment actually holds the key to something. I don't know where it will lead, but if they can actually provide every individual with their own health data and thereby giving their health data to the individual, that will sort of start a whole new wave of apps and interactions with the healthcare system,
great point.
but based around the individual's right to their own data and them giving access to the data to the companies and to the health sector and to the medical treatment. So I think that's really, for me, the most interesting thing that was said about this, and maybe this will open up opportunities that we are not even touching on in this discussion. This is
That's
Susie from
Absolutely.
that
Denmark. Thank
that
you.
ties into the product space, right? So that's where they want to focus on. That allows them to leverage on their wearables. By introducing and build on multi layers on that.
Well, there's
Advertising is still pretty
already
slow.
quite a few. There's already quite a few. I have a collection of app. I literally have a folder on my iPhone called Health Plan. And this is where I keep all of my health focused apps. And what it is if you open up your health app that comes by default with your app with your iPhone, this thing tracks literally everything: your active energy, your water intake, resting energy, heart rates, environment, sound levels, heart rate variability, blood oxygen. Steps. It's not just your steps. It's like tracking everything all the way down to your sleep. But what's very interesting about this is if you click on any one of these particular things, in order to get all of that data, there are partnered apps that Apple suggests at the bottom for you to pick. And these particular apps, when you pick them, you will give them permissions to access these health data and track these things for you so that this information is tracked securely on your phone and readily available for you to share with your physician. So they're already doing this and it works extremely well. And I've been using these apps they're the only health apps I trust. And so it's a very good point that you just made,
But you
Susie.
know what else?
But
Check this
they're
out.
collecting data.
Yeah, you know what else they're collecting? the Apple,
Data.
the Apple Watch, we just learned, is going to be able to track your blood sugar level, your blood alcohol
Hmm.
level, your heart rate throughout the day,
Hand movements.
24 hours a day. Yeah, I mean, the amount of data they're going to be able to get in with the Apple Watch and the additional sensors that might come over time, in addition to the phone itself, it's truly unprecedented. Like it's a
So Tyler,
yeah.
we worked on a
It,
project.
it, it
We
definitely
worked on
is
a project, and
unprecedented. And if I can just continue on this track with Michael,
Yeah.
I think what's happening is that if you imagine in the future that you can get access to an Apple Watch and something that can take a picture of your retina, those two informations alone, they can actually provide you with suggestions to what is happening with your health, but also how you should
Mm.
treat yourself, which medicine you should buy, so they can become a very informed doctor assistant. And
Mm.
I bet that it will be the doctor assistants that will take over for many people because of the money. So this also a way to democratize health and taking it from only the rich who can afford the good health system to giving more
Mm.
information to a whole new sector of people globally. So I think that's a
guys,
very, very interesting
this is
trend
amazing.
is taking.
Is
Let
this
me let
camera
me
not
give you let
for?
me give you let me give you research Apple was done recently with Imperial College. I was part of it. So basically, they were looking at ways that if you can find, so you can have a wearable where let's say you are diabetes type 1 or 2, it will tell you 30 minutes in advance whether you're going to go into a coma because your certain sugar level is falling apart, and it will give you a warning that. So we did a research based on putting a monitor on your arm. It will read the heart rate variations. And Apple was very keen on that. So basically, what it is, something to put on your wearable, it will give you a half an hour notice just to make sure your sugar level is getting to a very dangerous level. Please
Well,
get your,
like,
shut up.
um, I actually have been working on, and it's hopefully going to be going up this week. I don't know for sure yet, but I worked on a piece regarding wearable tech for helping to monitor and track for COVID. That it was done. Stanford had a study about it. Hi, everybody. Hi, I haven't talked to anybody in a while. Um,
Hi.
but yeah, so when I interviewed the scientist, I don't recall his name offhand. But when I interviewed with the Stanford gentleman, they told me a lot about the quantifiable data that they're collecting in order to assist to track and um, identify potential disease and illness. The gentleman I spoke to actually came up with he discovered he had Lyme disease because of the parameters that he was tracking on his thing. But another thing that I'm thinking, and I probably shouldn't be mentioning this because there could be other journos that might want to try and scoop me, is he did mention that they can track and they can know when you drink alcohol, etc., which I think would be really great to be explored into addictions and other things. So it'd be cool to help with the medical dashboard. That's all. Sorry.
I wanted to add like a new development, like Columbia University has developed microchips that are implantable of the size of a salt grain. Right now, as you know, for medical device development, for now, this chip can only measure temperature of the body, but they are planning to do all of this, what we have mentioned, and more
Yeah.
with this
I have this article.
microchip.
Thank Katerina. The article you just shared, I just retweeted it to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. It says a wireless chip the size of a grain of salt could soon make devices like pacemakers obsolete. Only visible with a microscope, and injectable chip the size of a grain of salt could transform the electrical devices we implant into people to keep them alive at just 0.1 millimeter cubed in volume, which is roughly comparable to a dust mite. Scientific researchers at Columbia University School of Engineering and Applied Science believe they have developed the smallest single chip system in the world. Implantable devices have long proven their worth in treating diseases, improving the function of organs and body parts, as well as monitoring long-term conditions. Some of the most widely used devices, such as pacemakers and cochlear implants, have vastly improved people's quality of life and saved countless patients' lives. For the most part, though, they are unwieldy, needing multiple circuits, wires, and battery packs. They also require surgery to put them inside the body. But could this chip mean larger implantable devices like these are a thing of the past? Well,
Tyler, so in Sweden they did that, right? 3 years ago, 3,000 people inserted a small, tiny microchips.
a friend of mine, Nicholas and I are friends with the guy who installed them. Yeah.
That was NFCs, though, right?
No.
That was just RFIDs.
Yeah,
right?
what Nicholas? They were NFC chips. The Honest did for
Just for ID,
yeah. It was for
not
open.
functional.
It wasn't for ID. It was for opening the door at the co-working space next door to me.
Right, NFC.
Yeah,
Yeah, NFC.
I assume NFC. I can bring him.
By the way,
And
guys,
another
what
small
Susie said
detail
was
I
is
could ping.
that
I could ping him in here. But by the way, the
a group
size of
has
this thing that you can see it in the article I just tweeted. It fits well within the tip of a syringe. By the way, they show it on the tip of a syringe inside the chamber to be installed. I mean, so you could include it as part of a vaccine. I don't want to scare anybody.
no.
Yeah.
No, don't say anything. Fighting this. We've been fighting this. Don't.
And another detail is that another group is developing that you can use sweat to charge the batteries of like
That was a
your
separate
Apple
article.
Watch
That's
or
right.
watches.
There was an article just came out, and I think Katerina, obviously you probably sent it to me, that the idea is that watches in the next generations could be rechargeable via some kind of chemical reaction from your sweat on your wrist.
So we are going to be the batteries.
Yeah, the city's the battery. We are the batteries.
And us walking will generate the battery.
Oh, by the way, there was
Tyler,
an article about generating power from walking as well. Go ahead, Kieran.
Tyler, I wish Greg was here. He would be saying this is just out indicating. This a lot of it stuff is just
He's
playing.
here.
He's here.
Greg is
He's
here.
here.
He's down at the bottom.
So, Greg, here's the question. We're talking about
I came in mostly to listen to people who know nothing talk about technology.
Yes.
Which is
Welcome, Greg.
like,
Well,
you
now
got to
that you're here,
subject
Greg, we
yourself
can
to
do that.
this.
I love
Cheers,
you,
You
Greg.
got to
Greg.
subject
Welcome,
yourself to this
Greg.
every now and then.
Greg's here. Yay.
Yay, we made it,
Before Greg
Greg.
Great to
attacks,
have you
I'm just
back,
wondering
Greg.
We missed
Love
you,
who
you,
would
Greg.
write.
We
Greg.
missed you, Greg.
For 2
Your
seconds there, I thought
your
I knew
fawning
something.
your fawning acceptance will keep me in the room for minutes longer.
Yeah. So here, I think you're gonna like what we're driving on here. There was some Irish Dave, who threw out an idea in the previous time zone, which was the iPad Pro came out today, and the reviewers are commenting on how remarkably good the camera is for doing FaceTime-like calls, video calls, Zoom calls, and whatnot. And it's so good that people can stand back 10 feet, and it still is able to get very close on their face and crop it for the calls. And so that led Dave to question. We talked about recently, because one of the people who joined us from Stockholm works at Tobii, this guy Frederick. And Tobii is a partner on the Oculus headsets and the HTC Vive headsets. And what we've learned from Tobii is that due to their eye tracking, they can enable through inference through just the eye, the iris, the gender, age, and physical health of the person, but far more than that. The cultural background, if they have a concussion or vision disorders or obesity or Parkinson's disease or depression or PTSD or autism or eating disorders, or if they've been under the influence of alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, MDMA, or cannabis, etc. And so the founder and CEO of Tobii is a friend of mine named John. So I pinged John to see if he would join us today. He said he couldn't, but I said, well, let me ask you a question then. Will Oculus give Facebook the ability with Tobii eye tracking to use all of these data points I just named here in their future ad networks? And he says, I think Facebook will be very careful to use this data and will need approval. And then I said, but what about Apple in these new iPad Pros have these new super upgraded cameras, which will no doubt be also in the future MacBook Pros, iMacs, etc., yada yada, that are all now expected to come out soon. And his response was, upgraded cameras in these laptops will be able to do this if they add a light and a controller for $5.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, actually, all I can say about that is startups generally have the edge on Apple, except when it comes to hardware. You can't even possibly fathom because it's literally just money. It's not expertise. It's money. Money locks up expertise. And so I laugh when I hear people talk about what's possible in hardware and they cite any other company besides Apple and maybe some defense
Microsoft?
companies. Yeah, no, absolutely not.
What?
No. Microsoft? Are you kidding? Are you absolutely no? My
Okay.
they like just look at the amounts invested. Like the only people that can hold a candle are defense investments into these underlying hardware technologies. The capital investment that a company like Apple does without batting an eye, you would need to go through years of proof of concept and approval and things like that at any other company to try to do some of the stuff that they just. I mean, you got to go back and look at some of the public examples when they wanted to do the unibody MacBook, and they figured out that they would need the world's supply of small CNC machines. They just said okay and got it done 2 weeks later, practically. Other companies they they look at these things and they say, well, we can't do that. And it's just it is the one thing that the only thing that is working in our favor is that smart people are running away from the company. And it turns out that like even if you offer them a lot of money, they still want to be able to think different, and that will slowly erode away this capability. But if you think that Apple can't do eye tracking better than some rando startup, and Tyler, your point is well taken. Like it's almost correct, but I would say that like it's also kind of naive to think that somebody who's working at a startup like would have any clue as to the extent that Apple could dominate, and not just in eye tracking, but any hardware sensor, anything whatsoever, anything that has to do anything in that realm. They literally just know more because they have the greatest people locked up inside. The greatest people are not out at startups, even the founders and things like that. They're not the like you're a founder of a company, by definition, you're not the sharpest tool in the shed on one given topic.
I have a question for the room, and Tyler, you can do a poll on this. When Apple kind of undoes most of its privacy things and starts using user data for ads, would you rather stick with Apple or would you move to a platform like Android who shares your data with everybody else? Would you stay in the walled garden or would you move to a different platform?
I mean, my viewpoint on this is that the whole privacy thing is a complete just facade. Like if anybody thinks that a company cares about something like your privacy, like you're like, oh man, like go look at some of my tweets recently about the bell curve of IQ. If you and and
I
and
retweeted
really
it.
think, yeah, and everybody should really go take a hard look at that and decide like there is literally not a company in the world, not one. I have been at the top of a company as the CEO saying I care about your privacy. But you know what? I only cared about your privacy in as much as I cared about my privacy.
Well, then they
So
have a clear view,
So would you
which
stay with Apple or would you move to a different platform? That's the question. Because
I would move to a different platform if I could, but I can't. I mean, if I choose Android, it's no better. And so Android, iPhone, who cares? I want a third platform to be available, and they sort of are, but you really have to give up on some pretty fundamental aspects of modern life to do that.
my
Thank
point
you, Greg.
exactly, because Apple makes a lot of money by just undoing all these things.
But like Eddie Q is literally like if you were to make a movie character for the Seven Deadly Sins, he's like gluttony, and he's like a few of them in one. And you're gonna trust like this. This is one of the guys that's been running the company and turning Apple from a creative company into an extractive company right before your eyes. And they put up a billboard that says privacy, and everybody goes, "Oh, Apple privacy," and they make and it I mean, it really is amazing to watch. I have a certain amount of admiration for it.
So, Greg, I have a question for you. So, I love what he said about if you're in the smartest, tool in the shed, Apple would have just, lifted you, right? That's just the way it is. And we saw this in the financial industry prior to 2008. They're throwing tens and 20 millions of guaranteed bonuses for smart traders, and you saw after 2008. A lot of those people, they realized how fucked up the financial industry, and you saw them all jumping out and starting their own ventures, and that's what kicked off a lot of the fintech innovations, right? For example, TransferWise and Square, all sorts. Do you see
Yeah,
that we can get to a situation in the near term where something will expose and it will explode? The way in which Facebook, all these big, massive firms, been doing a lot of the sleazy, all of that stuff, and that will make a lot of these smart people, like you said, the smartest, tools will get out and make their own path.
yeah.
It was actually an interview, right?
When Dan Riccio hired me, Dan said, "Greg, we need you to come inside of Apple because Steve Jobs is dead, and we need people that can do product and strategy and get us building great things again because we're kind of getting to the end of the list here."
They sold you the
And
dream, right?
yeah, and so I looked at it and I said, I actually said, "Dan, I'm looking at everybody else in the company that I've met. I'm nothing like them. I'm like a bull in a china shop." And he said, "Perfect, that's what we want." And then when I get inside and I find out that like think different is not, Dan was the only person that believed in that after I got there. He was like that last, just imagine a storm and he's the last timber of the house that's already fallen down. And he brought me in to see if we could shore things up. But I didn't know. And I get inside and I spent 3 years banging my head against a wall. By the way, some of the stuff that I started there that's still kind of plodding along is some of the most amazing shit that you would have ever seen. And I literally could not do it as a separate company. I could not do it as a separate company. It's one of the reasons I joined. How alluring for somebody like me. Money
So what is
and
going to take?
the ability to do this.
So what is going to take in order for all these people to get out and disrupt the space?
I don't know, like go remind them that they're complicit in genocide on a regular basis. Go turn the tides on media. Go subscribe to Substacks of people that feel like do good writing and unsubscribe from the New York Times and other rags that write about technology like The Verge that don't understand it. Like like all of these there's no such thing as a good tech blogger anymore.
And
Like
break
they're all,
NDMAs, like break non-disclosure agreements too, because I think
yeah,
one thing that Andrew Chang and I think Chamath were talking about recently, right,
yeah,
was
go
that
break
they were
your,
hiring all the top tech people because they didn't want them to go out there and start
They did,
startups.
they did the same thing in the financial industry prior to 2008. Goldman Sachs are throwing left, right, center so that all the smart people were in, they sold the dream and then they bring them inside and then that's it. You become the group thinking. And that
Yeah,
led
yeah,
because
to
the
the crisis.
Titanic goes slow, right? So they don't want anyone
literally,
disrupting the Titanic.
literally go elect any politician that wants to throw friction in the way of big tech, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat. Make it your number one issue. I have made it my number one issue. I don't care what your other political views are. If you want to go do this, I will vote for you. I will fund you. By the way, yes, employees, go break your NDAs en masse. I am Spartacus. Learn about efficient breach. Um, and just go run roughshod over these people because the individuals are not actually bad. It's the groupthink that is bad. It's the massive bureaucracies that are enabled by
Absolutely.
this concentration of capital that create the bad behavior. And the individuals would stop being so bad if it wasn't for this. Go read this book, about God, I gotta find the book title. I just gave it to a friend. Um, Voice versus Exit and Loyalty. Voice, Exit, and Loyalty. Go read this book and figure out how to not be one of the crabs that is pulling the crab that's escaping back down into the bucket. And then you can all get out together. It'll be great. Otherwise, the smart ones are going to go get on rockets to Mars and leave you behind to figure it out.
I take the single-use plastic with them.
Exit voice and loyalty.
Yeah, somebody just sent me a link about an app called Skyle that you can install on an iPad, and it will allow you to control your iPad with your eyes via the eye tracking.
Yeah, Face
So,
ID already does eye
yeah.
tracking if you want to.
Yeah. And also Microsoft, I'm saying you're serious, like 15 years ago, they had like webcams that actually followed you. And I used to play around with them for the seniors. Like they would actually follow you and track you as you're walking around the room. So it's perfect for old people, like in their rooms, so they could always be on the spot, right? So technology is there. It's just that implementation is the thing. And Apple's now controlling that whole consumer idea of what innovation is. That's a sad thing.
Yeah, everybody else does it as science projects. Like
Yeah.
Microsoft has had MSR for a long time, and Google does this through Google X and all these things. Those are science projects, but
Yeah.
it's been Apple's bread and butter to put these things out into the world. That's why you have a miniaturized, Xbox, Prime Sense type camera in your phone right now, more than likely.
Yeah. And
And it is truly a sight to be to behold because like this, like I miss it. Like if I cared less about the future of the world, I could just had a ball building cool shit in labs for millions of dollars a year. And by the way, this is not a mistake. Like these companies, because why do they have 100 or 200 billion dollars in cash? They don't know how to spend it. Why do they hoard people like me but not really let you do anything like for the world? Well, because if I don't do it for them, I might do it for somebody else, or I might come on
yeah.
Clubhouse and tell you to, realize that it's the man behind the curtain.
Hey, Greg, what about Xerox PARC then? Is that what they did in the past? Like, if you think about it, they actually had some of the greatest minds in
Absolutely.
one place and they screwed it up.
Yeah.
Bell Labs as well. But
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Well, and look, like they protect their intellectual property now,
Yeah.
so defensive. But it's just the same people that like went and stole it from
Yeah.
from
Steve
Xerox. And by the
Jobs.
way, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying
Read it.
do it again. Literally, if it was not inciting violence, I would say go mob Apple headquarters,
We,
and go steal all the IP back, and stop treating this stuff as like 20 years before you get to do something with it. Demand that the phone that you use every day that has become your entire life actually be open source. They aren't innovating anymore. They should
so you're
have
saying that
the
Leon
IP
is right.
protection.
So you're saying that Leon's certain country's approach may be the best way to disrupt this whole thing?
Well, look, there are things to admire about China. The underlying morality is not one of them.
so Leon, you have a head. It's Leon on stage, right? He also wanted to share the
Yeah.
headline.
Greg, I continue 1 more minute and I first to sleep. But anyway, thank you for stopping. I'm kidding. So my headline. So I'm a little bit feel a little bit upset today.
Oh,
My
What happened, Leo?
my like a role model. Or someone I always
Oh,
use them to
oh,
Oh,
brag
yes.
about. He stepped down. So I mean, he kept his money, but he gave away this kind of whatever, kind of influence. So he gave away his celebrity effect. So the CEO of ByteDance, which is a parent company of TikTok, he stepped down as a CEO. He's still the chairman or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
but he handed over the CEO position to the chief human resource officer.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of
That
weird
makes no.
because
Yeah.
CPP
there's
You
officer.
think that's weird? What about how the guy from Pinduoduo also just stepped down for no reason? Why are these Chinese CEOs stepping down for no reason, Leon?
To daydream.
no to look at what happened to Jack Ma.
Yep.
Yep.
What happened to Jack Ma,
well
CPP
Leon?
of
said,
human
Leo.
resources.
He's okay actually. He lost a
He's
30%
okay.
market cap. He's okay actually. I honestly, like I said,
I have
I
them in
told
my
people so
basement.
many times, right? That just treat China as a state-owned, whole China as a big company. Each one of those tech companies subsidiary.
I give them a
If
bowl of
your
milk once a day.
CEO didn't do a good job, you get a discipline. So others, they just submitted their resignation letter voluntarily. That's
Can
pretty
I
much
ask
what
you?
happened.
Because you know the guy a little bit, right? At least the guy from TikTok that stepped down today, right?
Correct.
He's friends with Jack Ma, probably, right?
I don't think so.
Oh,
He's too young. He's like my age, a little bit older than Greg. In that sense, that means he's a loser from Greg's point of view because he's older. Even he's probably 20 times richer than Greg. It's okay. Greg gonna be richer than he is by his age, so that's fine.
Oh, Leon. Like,
But it's
No,
not
I
about the money.
remember.
Seriously, he's
Yeah, Greg, that's all
Leon,
you want, right? Money.
Leon,
I
Leon,
remember
look.
everything. No,
He's
it's okay,
poking
Greg.
at you.
Greg, it's
No,
He's
not
I
about
poking
you.
at you.
It's not
literally,
about you. Let's go back to
no.
let's go back to
You
Yimin.
invoked my
Sorry,
name.
Greg.
You
Let's talk
invoked my
about the.
name. This is what happens when you fight with America. America is always going to win over China.
I don't give a damn, Greg. Let's talk about Yimin Zhang.
No, like, look,
I have a richer ass
you don't
piece.
even
Okay,
know how
yours is
rich
not
I
as
am
rich.
in my
So
head. You don't
shut.
even know how rich I am.
Hey,
I
Like,
Leon, there's one
I
more
literally,
news. The
like, there are no
贝壳早饭
limits. There are
CEO
no
died,
limits to
right?
the
At 50
depth of
years
my
old.
mind, Leon.
of
You're so
course, of course.
envious of this. I know.
I know. Why you person attack me? I just leave some fact. You are not as rich as Yimin Zhang. That's a fact. Come on, man. That's a
Wait,
simple
like,
fact.
wait,
Leon.
Okay, let's go
did
back
you,
to Yimin
did you
Zhang.
or
Let's go
did you
back to
not?
Yimin Zhang.
Did you or
I
did you
mean,
not
no,
punch
no, no.
first?
I don't want to
I know
answer
it was
that.
a lame, girly
That's not
punch.
even
I
relevant,
know it
Greg.
was a lame,
No
girly
one is
punch.
interested in that.
Oh, we
Can a
love
poor guy
No
stop
punching
this
one
fight?
is
pieces. Oh
Where's
my
the
interested
god.
in
Punch
When
Club
that.
sound?
I
somebody gives you,
appreciate
Real
more
talkies.
rappers
no,
doing this
hang
because
on,
they
hang
do
on,
it
hang on.
more
When,
No,
ingeniously
no
than
one
you
no,
is
guys
hang
interested
do
in
on,
it.
that.
Sincerely.
hang on.
Can
When
we just
somebody slaps you
agree?
and it's like a little
We
bit
are
wet
interested in like a
from their
Yimin
girlish,
Zhang,
small
please.
Hey,
Chinese
Leon,
hands,
Leon, let Greg just talk.
That's all right.
Greg, you are
yeah.
small-minded
Oh, what?
person who
Like,
cannot
hey,
take over.
hey,
You just
listen,
said that. You
listen.
just said
I'm
that.
gonna
I
need
don't
to
give a
take a.
damn,
Love
Greg.
First of
this.
all,
I don't give
You
a
got
damn.
a
First of all,
friend in
second of all, third of
me.
all, I don't
I
care.
gotta go take a
You are
shower.
You
wasting
got a
everyone's
I gotta
friend
go
in
take a
time.
me.
shower.
It's been
Tyler,
quite
Got
some
do you
some
need
time
some
since we
gunpowder.
had an
music?
international war on our spades.
Kyle,
I
Guys,
cannot.
Pooh Bear's
hey,
more rich
sing
than
it,
any of you
Kyle.
US,
guys.
US.
I
It's the
I just
point of the
love tech
month.
news. I love tech news.
Yes, Kyle.
This is the point.
Kyle
You
was
got to
killing.
love this. I learned never curse anymore. So, you say I keep my word.
Yeah, Kyle killed me with
Anyway,
the
so I
song.
think
That was so
everyone's
good.
still interested in this story, right? Let's just go back to the story. Sorry
No,
about that,
nobody's
Greg.
interested in anything you have to say, but you're kind of like,
No.
yeah,
No,
it's like
can we just
literally
vote?
zero.
Kyle, sing the song.
Interested in what I said.
Kyle, sing it. Sing the song, Kyle.
Yeah, go
Kyle,
for it.
do it.
Oh, it was killing me. Uh,
Cheryl has a story about
It's
a dead
Kyle.
that's
billionaire.
right. No, actually, we're short. We have 7 minutes left, believe it or not. And I want to give MA
Oh,
and
thank God.
Victoria the opportunity to share something new. You ladies want to do this right now?
Oh, sorry, Tyler, I haven't
Yeah,
finished yet.
yeah,
So
sure.
the official. Do you want to know the official explanation of Yimin Zhang? I mean, again, probably one of the richest guy. Why he stepped down? I think it's kind of a
Tyler
really
said that the
important.
ladies were going to speak.
Yeah.
But I would
One
I
like to.
know,
second.
Jennifer.
Yeah, Leon. Let's. We're short on time, so we'll do that tomorrow.
Sure,
But
sure.
because we.
That's
Okay.
his way of saying he doesn't like you.
Yeah. Um,
Hi
Or we
everyone.
have a
Sorry to
problem
He's
with
trying to
interrupt,
gender.
but
decode it for you.
because
yeah. Ame and
can I?
I don't think so, Greg.
Victoria.
Hi,
Victoria.
Um,
Tyler. I just want to ask,
yeah.
when do you start the
Hey,
room? I'm
Victoria.
really
How are
sorry.
you?
I'm doing all right.
So you
Thanks,
guys,
Emma.
there's a big upcoming event in Miami called Bitcoin
Conference.
2021. Yeah, huge
Yeah.
conference. The speakers at this conference are no less than Jack Dorsey from Twitter, Michael Sayers from MicroStrategies, Senator Cynthia Lumens. Who else do we got here? Nick Savo, computer scientist, amongst many, and Tony Hawk, of hundreds of speakers. And they want to go to Miami to this Bitcoin conference, which is labeling itself as the biggest Bitcoin conference ever to be held on planet Earth. So they're putting together a little crowdfunding campaign. And we, as a community in the audience, we've got 420 people here. If you know they basically were looking for 3 things: tickets, and we think we might have a good lead there. Hotels in Miami and flights, and a little crowdfunding thing to help them go there, and we can do some interviews live there, and do a live Clubhouse rooms where you can interview all of the notable people there. It could be a lot of fun for Clubhouse as well. So there's a web page, is there not, MA, that we can point people to for if they want to be able to help. Of course, they should DM May and Victoria on the stage here if you might have any leads to any way to help in this mission to get them to this Bitcoin conference. And what's the website that we should send them to, May? Uh-oh, my mic died. Are you there?